Yes. Hello, my beautiful friends. What an amazing day it is today. We're waiting for the streams to connect themselves before we jump into the affairs as we close out the week. As always, lots of business to attend to. Want to make sure those tubes connect themselves. And I think they're warming up appropriately on this lovely and amazing extra good Friday. We made it through another very busy week, my friends. I'm very glad that you're here. We got a lot of business to attend to before we close it out. We're talking about appeals. Trump dropped this one, the emergency application for a stay, which is now going up to the DC Circuit Court of Appeals. This is the Judge Boasberg case that we spent a lot of time talking about. This judge right here, who is now holding Trump and the Trump administration in contempt. Trump is taking that puppy up on appeal, and we'll read through what is going on there. An emergency motion for a stay saying, please stop this from happening, this contempt and this discovery procedure, asking for some help. But what's also interesting here is the ACLU gangbanger lawyers. They submitted this one today too. They have an emergency motion. They're saying Trump is still boarding up the airplanes, saying, all right, get on. But the judge said to get on. Saying today they learned that the government is now giving more notices to the gangbangers. Oh, taking them out. Afuera-ing them right out of our country where they should belong. Now, we'll talk about that because the ACLU filed that, and we'll go through it. Now, we've also got some updates on the Kilmar situation. Remember, this is the Judge Paula Zinnis case, and we'll go through this one because, man, he got let out yesterday. You may have seen these photos percolating around on the interwebs. And we're asking ourselves, what's going on over here? What happened? Well, Nayib Bukele had a couple things to say about it, which we'll talk about because he posted these photos, and it looks just so romantic, doesn't it? Wow. You really want to get a close connection with somebody like that at least once in your life, if you know what that feels like. Wow, what a beautiful thing. So they were there, and there's a margarita situation, a margarita gate. What are those little cherries doing on top? What's happening over here? What are they sipping margaritas? All right, so he denies it. He says, I didn't have a margarita with a wife-beating, gang-banging, human trafficking terrorist. No. I didn't do that. So he came out, gave us an explanation on what happened here. I don't know. He's looking around. He's kind of manic. See that? He might still be drunk from the margaritas. I don't know. Maybe. We'll see. Still probably coming down. They're probably getting ham-boned last night. Who knows? And his wife is there too. Well, we got some clips from her because she was out also talking about and getting asked questions about why she filed an order of protection against her husband who was beating her. I got so many tabs here. I don't even know where we are. We got so much to get through. Look at all these tabs up top here. Make your head spin. But we'll do it. We'll make it work. So we got that coming up. Now, I did want to zoom in on this for a little bit, which was this concept of this judge. Okay, we keep hearing this. Well, they're violating a judge. There was a judge who granted a withholding order. Oh, you can't go to El Salvador, blah, 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 blah. All right, what we keep forgetting to talk about when we're so focused on due process is the position and the power of the very judge in the first place, which is not an Article 3 judge like we're used to hearing about. Okay, we always just use these words and think that they mean all the same thing, and they cover a bunch of things like a judge is a judge is a judge is a judge. No. This came from this judge. This was the order of withholding from removal for El Salvador to keep him here. This judge right here who signed this whole puppy, just to be ultra clear about this, is David M. Jones, a United States immigration judge out of Baltimore, Maryland. And the immigration judges operate under the executive branch. Okay, so when Trump came in and overruled this by utilizing the Alien Enemies Act, that was the executive branch acting on due process that had already been provided in his multiple appeals, his appeal and his prior proceeding. And this judge got overruled by the attorney general, which is lawful and you're allowed to do it. In fact, you can go over to the immigration office for immigration review, the EOIR, and look where it is under the Department of Justice, right? It's an Article 2 power. And so the Alien Enemies Act overruled that judge in the branch and used the due process that had already been provided to change the status and make the policy determination. There was plenty of due process. We'll come back to that. But all that's coming up. I want to go through the latest declarations that came in the Kilmar case. You can see not much there from the Trump DOJ. And that, of course, is interesting. So we'll see what Judge Zenas Rhymeswith thinks about all that. Bunch of clips here. Angel Mom, Patty Morin was out. Democrats are too busy palling around with wife beating, human trafficking, MS-13 gangbangers, rather than talking to their own constituents in America. Wild times. Trump came out and had a statement about this, and MSNBC cut off of him when he was live. They're like, oh, he's going to talk about this gangbanger. They're like, oh, let's talk about something else. Is there any transgender issues we can talk about? So they're just looking around, it's MSNBC being MSNBC. So a bunch of clips. We got Stephen Miller coming up. We got the wife here. She got asked about that. Hey, why did you file that you were in fear in writing 2 times? We'll see what she says about that. We got that coming up. Stephen Miller is here. We've also got Tom Homan to round out that segment. So a bunch of stuff to get to there before we turn our attention to the biggest Tish in New York and probably the biggest fraudster there who is in government is Tish James. She's getting a recommendation for some discipline over from Steve McLaughlin. He is a New York County executive, and he sent this over saying, she just got referred for criminal charges. Maybe you guys should discipline her in the meantime. Look into this. So she's under investigation. She's not happy about it. She's throwing fundraisers, $18,000 per person wow, that's a lot. That might be more than Big Fanny. Whoa. We've got a new Madam DA in town, don't we? Except this one is Madam AG. Oh, shoot. We got Fanny versus Tish. Wow. Should be like an Alien versus Predator movie. All right. So we got that coming up. Ralph Norman also sent a letter in to the Honorable Bill Pulte, sending some messages to him. We'll listen to what Tish said about all this, and then we'll check out what Jim Jordan said in response. And so we have got a ton of business to attend to, and it's great to see everybody. And we're very happy everything's working right now. So, my friends, what a beautiful day it is. Happy Friday. Happy Good Friday to my friends who are celebrating, and happy Holy Week to all those who are participating. We want to say thank you to our membos. Yesterday, we had like 1,000 million membos get gifted in here. Really very grateful for that. We had a beautiful members-only morning stream. If you are a membo and you missed that, catch it. It was fun. We also would like to join you, if you're a membo, on our live stream tomorrow on Saturday, which we'll be doing at 12 noon Eastern time, and we'll see you there. Now, it is time to get to business. So you can join as a member watching thewatchers.locals.com or click the join button on YouTube. And we would love to see you inside the members only community, the best members only community in the history of the galaxy and the universe. We also have business now to get to. Let's get into it. President Trump issues an emergency appeal, filing this puppy with the District of Columbia Circuit Court of Appeals. We have been here many times before. We know where their political allegiances lie. But let's recall, this is the case of JGG versus Trump. And these are the pseudo-anonymous Tren de Aragua gangbangers. There's so many gangbanger cases going on with the ACLU gangbang lovers who are suing on their behalves everywhere. It's hard to keep track of them. But this one is about the airplanes. Remember, the airplanes were in the air. Trump invoked the proclamation, the Alien Enemies Act, saying these guys are terrorists because they're terrorizing our country, and now they go. So what happened was, right before the planes took off, or after they took off, kind of debating on what side you take here, the judge said, turn them around. Trump didn't do that. Judge Boasberg, this same Obama-appointed judge that we've talked a lot about here, the same guy who gave Ray Epps that J6er probation and then sympathized with him, saying, I'm so sorry you were hounded, got articles of impeachment filed against him. Lots of questions about how he got this case, but his entire family, it feels like, is embedded in Democratic issues and Democratic politics. So this is very appropriate for him. But this judge now is getting appealed. President Trump submitted this up to the Court of Appeals. This one's on an emergency motion. As the contempt is pending right now, the contempt is moving through. They say, all right, Court of Appeals, do something about this. And of course, we know likely what's going to happen here. This will just be the precursor to appealing to the Supreme Court of the United States. Usual individuals here. This is mostly being led by Drew Ensign. Shout out to Drew and Chad Mizell. They say, all right, listen, DC Circuit Court of Appeals. As a reminder, this judge just ordered us to turn a plane around under the Alien Enemies Act, saying that they have bigger rights. He certified a class action of terrorists, all these things. And now he's holding us in contempt, and he's going to order a special prosecutor to come and prosecute us for doing our job. Just that's the context. They say, okay, occasions for constitutional confrontation between the two branches should be avoided whenever possible. Citing a 2004 Supreme Court case called Cheney versus U.S. District Court for the District of Columbia. Whenever possible, Supreme Court said, avoid a conflict. That's not what's happening in this modern day and age. Right now, we've got judges of every state coming out, issuing nationwide injunctions to stop Trump because they are waging a political warfare that's being orchestrated by guys like Norm Eisen, Mark Elias, George Conway, and the rest of them. Trump says, the district court's criminal contempt order from Boasberg instead escalates constitutional stakes by infringing on the executive's core prerogatives, telling us the Supreme Court has already once intervened here. They vacated, to be clear on this, vacated his TROs. And we've gone through the Supreme Court opinion here, I think 3 times now, showing what the judge said Trump had to do was not lawful. He didn't have jurisdiction over it. They should have filed a habeas petition in Texas where they were being detained. But the judge allowed them to bring this up to DC, file it in his court. Somehow he got this case on the emergency docket, or he's on vacation or whatever the story was, and then issued a class certification for a group of gangbanging terrorists, and then issued an injunction to turn the planes around. It's lunacy that this happened in America by one of our own judges, but it did. The Supreme Court vacated it, said he couldn't do any of that stuff. He doesn't have jurisdiction. They want to complain about it, go to Texas. The judge said, well, even though my order, and we read through all of this, the judge admitted, even though there was a legal defect in the judge's order, he wrote, you still had to follow it. Because other case law says that if you're a protester or something like MLK Jr., that if he didn't like an order, he would have had to follow it, right? Which makes sense because he doesn't run the executive branch, never did. President Trump does. It's called a co-equal branch of government. So he's not obliged to follow your illegal, unlawful order, especially when it's encroaching on his particular power. The Constitution gives him the prerogative to execute the law and to take care. So now they vacated this terrible judge's orders, and they required any further challenges stripping this judge of his jurisdiction must be brought in Texas, where they are in custody. Now, this judge, instead of winding down the DC proceedings, Boasberg has now pivoted to compelling Trump to pursue 2 alternative but equally unconstitutional avenues to address what he says are supposed violations of the vacated illegal TRO. How dare you violate what I told you to do illegally? Either Trump, writes Trump, must aid the court in the court's efforts to effectuate a contempt prosecution. Okay, we have to go help them, stab us in the head. A step that unconstitutionally commandeers the president's exclusive and preclusive prosecutorial powers. We're not going to help you prosecute us. That's our job, to prosecute people. And if you don't like how we're prosecuting things, you have your remedies in Congress to impeach us. But let me continue. Or Trump may cure that contempt by asserting custody, whatever that means. We don't even know what that means, of individuals who are in the custody of El Salvador, right? Go get them back. A step that unconstitutionally compels the executive branch to persuade a foreign sovereign to accede to the court's demands. So we're damned if we do, we're damned if we don't. We either have to help you prosecute us, or we have to go force another government outside of our desire, meaning your constitution, you're compelling us to do something that we don't want to do, and it's our power to make that decision. You don't get to substitute your judicial decisions for ours. If you could, that makes you the president. Your job is to say what the law is, not what you think the law should be, or why Trump's a racist or whatever. Keep that to yourself, write a blog about it, but follow the law. They write those separation of powers violations that this judge is trying to impose on all of us manifestly warrant this court's immediate intervention, DC. The district court's commands, Judge Boasberg, it functions like injunctions, and so they're appealable as such. He doesn't even have jurisdiction over it at all. Now, at minimum, the executive branch can obtain immediate review of an order that inflicts immediate irreparable harms on us, and they can't constitutionally harm us, which is what they're doing. Now, worse, Judge Boasberg is putting the executive branch to these unconstitutional choices to cure a non-existent case of criminal contempt. We fully complied with the TROs that they issued and certainly didn't flout any clear, unambiguous commands. The planes were in the air. They left U.S. airspace. They weren't in our jurisdiction anymore. It was done. After your TRO was written and came out in writing and published, we followed it. Okay, Judge? So just take a chill pill and relax. The court enjoined the executive branch, Boasberg, from, quote, removing certain aliens. And thereafter, we undisputably stopped removing them under that act, okay? Now, then Trump found an independent source for removing them and said, fine, we won't remove them under the AEA. We'll just remove them under standard immigration powers. That's fine. And they kept going, which we'll see. Now, the district court now reasons that remove meant legal removal, i.e. transferring custody, but not physical removal, okay? Oh, no. We meant physical. That is legally wrong, Judge. But even the court recognized the meaning of remove was at least ambiguous, and contempt cannot rely on something that is facially ambiguous, okay? You can't blame us for not knowing what to do when your order couldn't tell us what to do. They say, all right, Court of Appeals, this court should stay Judge Boasberg and his order and prevent further encroachments on this separation of powers, which are ours. They tell us, here's how it works. The Alien Enemies Act empowers the president to detain and remove alien enemies when there is a declared war or any invasion or predatory incursion by the foreign government. And you see how this is in U.S. code? That means Congress passed a statute. So when the president is acting under this power, he's not identifying some maybe some people might argue, ephemeral provision of the Constitution and saying, I'm going to draw new power out of this somewhere. Or I'm going to go back to, this is a law. It's codified by Congress. Now you could say it was codified a long time ago, but it's there. It's on the books, which means when Trump is acting under the Alien Enemies Act, he's acting with the full power of the executive branch, which has the legitimacy of the American people who voted for him in overwhelming numbers, which is the legitimacy provided by our democracy, our democratic republic, combined with Congress that gave him that power. The Supreme Court has observed that with that and under that, the AEA, this is why, is as unlimited a grant of power as the legislature could make it. Ludke versus Watkins. Supreme Court said that in 1948. Now, the statute confers largely unreviewable power in the president to restrain and to provide for removal of alien enemies. Now, do you understand why that is? Of course you do, but these judges don't. If it was reviewable, then it wouldn't be up to the discretion or to the execution of the president. That means the judge could then substitute the judge's opinion with the president's, and the judges aren't elected. They're not accountable to us. So that would violate the principles of democracy that we have. Unelected judges would be doing whatever they want without connection or accountability to the American people. That's why we have it this way. So sorry, judges, you can't do that. This is the executive. It's unreviewable. If you make it reviewable, they're the president. So the president then, on March 15th, the president published a proclamation invoking the AEA to detain and remove members of Tren de Aragua, an entity that the State Department has designated a foreign terrorist organization. He's allowed to do that. They might disagree with that. They're not terrorists. They're just gang, whatever. Well, if you don't like that, then you can run for president. But we elected him to do these things. You don't get to stop it all of a sudden because you don't like it. You lost the election, Judge. The proclamation authorizes the detention and the removal under the AEA of all Venezuelans 14 years of age or older who are members of Tren de Aragua, are within the United States, are not actually naturalized or lawful permanent residents, right? This is always the thing. Trump's not rounding up people who are even lawful permanent residents, even if you're a gangbanger. Now, here on Saturday, March 15th, plaintiffs, 5 Venezuelan nationals, detained at an immigration detention center in Texas, sued in Washington, D.C. Got the gangbang lawyers out to block the government from removing them. They moved to certify a class action of all non-citizens who were, are, or will be subject to Trump's proclamation. And they got it. Judge Boasberg gave it to them. So they sought relief under both habeas, right? They knew that this is about detention, and under the APA, because they had to file under the APA, because if they only filed under habeas, they know that they would have had to go to Texas, and Boasberg would have had to dismiss their case. They moved for the TRO, barring their summary removal under the Alien Enemies Act. Now, within hours, they write to the Court of Appeals, and without waiting to hear from the government, the district court granted an initial TRO without even hearing from the American people who just elected Trump, and ordered, in other words, siding with the gangbangers and their lawyers, ordered Trump, do not remove any of these trends from the United States for 14 days absent further order of the court. Keep them here. Now, later that day, the court held a hearing on the class certification motion. The government said, Your Honor, these are habeas claims. They got to go down to Texas to file their lawsuits. In response, the district court, Boasberg, he said, well, do you guys want to dismiss your habeas claim? Because he's right. If you have a habeas claim, then you got to get out of here. They said, oh, no. We'll dismiss it. We'll dismiss the habeas claim. They said, oh, okay, cool. So we're just going to let you operate then under the APA, and we'll certify a class under the federal rules of civil procedure. We have now a class action lawsuit brought for gangbangers of America. Maybe they'll start a nonprofit NGO. Maybe they'll start an NGO, Gangbangers of America, for Gangbangers for American Democracy. You can probably put Stacey Abrams in charge. Turning to the merits, the court held that the plaintiffs were likely to succeed because the term invasion and predatory incursion really relate to hostile acts perpetrated by enemy nations and commensurate to war. All right, so Judge Boasberg is now saying, actually, Trump can't invoke the Alien Enemies Act for these people because they're not killing enough Americans and it's not causing enough damage here. It's not terrorism enough. They're not enemy combatants, in other words, because it's not war, because they're not a party to an actual nation state, which is obviously a judgment call that is left for the executive to make. This judge doesn't have all the intelligence that Trump has about Maduro and Venezuela and Tren and the full operation of the DOD and the Border Patrol and all the FBI and CIA and all these things. The judge has no idea. How dare he substitute his judgment for the will of the American people? This judge is, some might say, insurrecting all of America by inserting his opinion for Trump's, acting as though he's the commander in chief. He doesn't have access to any of this knowledge at all. The district court next addressed the implementation of its order. The court reassured the attorneys that it would issue a minute order memorializing a TRO, so you don't have to write it down. So thereafter that, in light of an earlier assertion by the lawyers that flights for moving individuals were scheduled to take off, the court came out and said, any plane containing these folks that's going to take off or is in the air needs to be returned immediately. But those people need to be returned right now. He said, turn around the airplane. The court then repeated it and said, okay, then we're going to write it all down. So then shortly after the hearing, this is Trump writing, they said at 7:25, the Boasberg issued a minute order provisionally certifying a class of the gangbangers, saying you can't remove any gangbangers from this country. We love them. The court's written order did not, in the writing, did not direct the defendants to turn around the planes or to return the already removed from the physical location aliens. Didn't tell them in the written order. So they followed it to the T. Now, the government appealed both TRO orders, and filed motions. After oral arguments, this court issued a divided rule denying a stay. And then we went up to the Supreme Court. Supreme Court vacated Judge Boasberg's TROs, said, sorry, you lack authority to issue them, Judge. You can't order this crap. These are habeas claims. They should have been brought in Texas, like Trump said from the beginning. Vacated. The Supreme Court said that the gangbanger claims fall within the core of the writ of habeas corpus because it's about their physical detention. Where are they? And thus they must be brought in habeas. And for core habeas petitions, jurisdiction lies in Texas. Saying, so in the meantime, then Judge Boasberg said, well, I don't like that. I don't really care what the Supreme Court says. I run the government now. And the judicial insurrectionist is now issuing orders to show cause. How dare you not comply with our TRO? How dare you? It's illegal. Well, I want you to follow it anyways. Well, we're a co-equal branch of government. Well, you have to follow me. I'm a court. We don't want lawlessness. There's precedent. We can tell other people what to do. In other cases, we have, see, here's a case, here's a case, here's a case, where they had to follow what we said, even though we were reversed later on. Okay. Were any of those cases against the president? Who was acting under the color of law, under the Alien Enemies Act in particular, or anything like that? There was a statutory guidance by Congress granted to him? No, they weren't. They were private citizens. So thanks for your irrelevant case law. We don't want it. As the government explained, it had fully complied with the TROs. We didn't remove those 5 gangbangers who actually sued. And remember, they're always complaining about, we didn't have notice of removal. How'd you sue before anyone else? I'm sure they've got ACLU gangbangers just floating outside these facilities, just waiting, and not removing any other class member from United States territory after the second TRO was issued. So once the writing came down, we abided. And the Supreme Court issued an order vacating Judge Boasberg 4 days after the show cause hearing. But notwithstanding the Supreme Court's judgment and clear guidance, Boasberg proceeded after he got vacated to issue an order finding probable cause that Trump committed criminal contempt. You violated my vacated illegal orders. I hold you in contempt for doing that. Judge, the Supreme Court said you have no jurisdiction. Well, I don't care. I'm going to find it anyways. The court said, well, my written TRO and oral command defining compliance were sufficiently clear and specific in prescribing the handover of the class members. So you should have known that I wanted you to put him back on the plane and brought him back. The court characterized our reading as the TRO as clever. He says, you're clever. You read it that way, huh? But he says, consistent with dictionaries, I read a dictionary, says the judge, and so I reject it. You should have read a dictionary that I read and done what the dictionary said rather than what the law says, idiots. So contempt. Saying the court reasoned that Trump should have understood the court's TRO in light of the oral statements and turned the planes around. So then Boasberg, Weiner, having found probable cause, he sought to secure prospective compliance. He says, hey, guess what? You can purge your contempt. Just a reminder that his TROs were vacated. They were illegal by the Supreme Court, had no power to hear the case. He said, though, you can fix this. You can purge your contempt that he doesn't have power over. The government can only do so by asserting custody of the individuals who were removed in violation of the TRO, which was illegal, so that they might avail themselves of the right to challenge their removability through a habeas proceeding if they want. So bring them back and give them an opportunity or something. I don't know what take custody of. I think that asserts bring them back. Or can they file a habeas petition from a foreign prison when you don't actually have detention over them? I don't know. Maybe there's something like a habeas in absentia petition. I don't know. Maybe there's something like that. By taking custody back from El Salvador and bringing those aliens to the U.S. A few hours later, they asserted those individuals can already press habeas claims from El Salvador. There you go. Without any such assertion. They said we can file it from there. There you go. El Salvadorians can file their habeas petitions from El Salvador this whole time. They're just telling us. Great. So they just file it down there. What are they so upset about? That makes more sense. File from down there. The only other choice, they're like racing, right? This is actually a big point. They're like racing. We have to get them stopped from getting out of here. Otherwise, they're going to be gone and doomed. They file it down there. If they win, we'll bring them back. But they're not citizens, so keep them out. Now, the only other choice the district court ordered is for the government to identify the individuals who made the decision not to halt the transfer on March 15th and 16th, right? Like this judge wants names. Who was the pilot? Who was the person who was opening the door? Who operated the little crane to bring the thing to the airplane? Who did that? What, did they not bring that back when we told them to? What happened here? Says the court would then request that the contempt be prosecuted by an attorney for the government. Okay. So then Trump would have to appoint his own attorney. And if the government declined to prosecute itself for doing its job, the court said that it will appoint another attorney to prosecute the contempt, which is wild. So like the judge is going to form his own Justice Department, I guess, out of his butt, like all of this other stuff that we've read from him. Says under this option, then, the court must identify relevant individuals for prosecution. Okay, we have to prosecute ourselves and either prosecute them itself or allow a district court appointed prosecutor to exert the prosecutorial function that we have. We're not going to do either of those, obviously. They say, listen, Court of Appeals, whether construed as an appeal of an injunction or a writ of mandamus or whatever, you better hear our case, okay? However you take it, take it. The district court's order embarks on criminal contempt proceedings, which are a remedy of last resort that requires the clearest of violations, not a non-existent violation like we have here. But Boasberg is now compelling the government to pursue one of two unconstitutional options to address criminal contempt. One, we got to prosecute our own officials in contravention of obvious separation of powers principles that prohibit the judiciary from turning the executive branch prosecutional powers on itself. Like this judge is such a power-mad whack job that he thinks he controls the DOJ now too, in addition to the State Department and Homeland Security. Incredible. Or instead of that, the government must successfully persuade or force El Salvador to release and return aliens in its custody, unconstitutionally seizing foreign relations power. Okay, everything he's allowed to do, it's Trump's power. You can't touch it. Putting the government to those unconstitutional choices is especially inappropriate because we didn't even violate his original order, and now he's punishing us for not doing anything wrong. Now, because the judiciary owes our executive branch officials respect, because we are another co-equal branch of government in the Constitution in function and design, if you're going to pursue criminal contempt against us, it better be a last resort because they're going to start swinging back. And Trump can, in my opinion, just pardon everybody in this. You're all pardoned. No contempt at all. Nice game, Judge. And if the American people, which is what they want, he wants to goad him into that, to be clear, so that then the Democrats can say, do you see what's happening? Constitutional crisis, lawless order. Now, I'm optimistic that once this all gets meted out, and if that course does come to fruition, that the country and our Congress, hopefully, will hear from the country to explain we don't want judges encroaching on the Constitution in the name ever, first of all, ever, but especially in a case like this in the name of illegal terrorists in our country. It's, I think, a losing political proposition for them, but that's all they've got. They're trying to catch Trump in a legal and political ensnarement, and they'll think that the public won't know what the basis is here. Now, for criminal contempt, they say Judge Boasberg's contempt order initiates further constitutional collision. Judge Boasberg instructed Trump and the government to investigate and identify senior officials responsible for decision-making with these removals. Then they want us to prosecute them for purportedly disobeying the judge's illegal order. Now, recognizing that Pam Bondi, of course, is unlikely to prosecute any criminal referral from you, Judge, the court said it's going to appoint a private attorney to prosecute the criminal contempt charges, whatever that means. The entire process here egregiously intrudes on the executive branch's exclusive prosecutorial powers. You're not going to, appoint who? Liz Cheney again? You're going to bring her back up? Criminal contempt is a crime in the ordinary sense, says the law. Thus, if you're prosecuting criminal contempt, that is the executive branch. We would have to prosecute it, moron. The executive branch, not the judiciary, makes arrests and prosecutes offenses on behalf of the United States. The executive. That's from the Trump case, 2023. saying Congress cannot act on and courts cannot examine the president's actions on subjects within his conclusive and preclusive constitutional authority. If the Constitution gives it to the president, it belongs to the president, no matter how bad Judge Boasberg hates it, how bad Judge Zenas rhymes with hates it, or George Conway. Got to live with it. And the only executive branch, not the judiciary, decides whether to prosecute a case. That's the separation of powers. You don't want too much power in one branch. If you allow the judiciary to initiate and prosecute and judge crimes, that is way too much power consolidated into one. And guess what this judge is doing, right? For all the people, like, Trump's destroying our Constitution, destroying our democracy. This judge is now trying to be judge, jury, and executioner. He's trying to initiate the prosecution, have it come through his case, even though his orders are illegal, hold him in contempt, and then sentence him probably to life in prison, if not worse. Now, the power, and then calls himself protecting the Constitution. It's facially illogical. He's trying to literally gobble up all the entities into one case. The power of the prosecutorial discretion is rooted in Article 2. Not them, not Congress, not the executive. Now, sometimes courts have appointed private prosecutors where the executive branch declines to prosecute a contempt case against private individuals for things like lack of resources, but that appointment practice lacks any justification and transgresses constitutional bounds when you're trying to prosecute the executive branch for your illegal order. Now, the Second Circuit recently upheld the appointment of a private prosecutor to prosecute a private citizen. That was in the Donziger case. But if you want to prosecute us, Judge Boasberg, we got to do it to ourselves. The executive branch must itself prosecute or face a court-appointed private prosecutor who would actually be an executive branch prosecutor. That private prosecutor could exercise all of those powers outside the president's prerogative, outside the attorney general control, all in service of a prosecution that the executive branch opposes. You can't outsource that power to private citizens, insulate them from the executive branch, and then unleash that against the executive branch, unless you're a dictator, like this judge is trying to be. Now, alternatively, Judge Boasberg says the government can purge their contempt. All you have to do is assert custody over these people. But that avenue lacks any basis. Inviting the government to purge contempt makes no sense of criminal contempt, which is designed to punish rather than to induce compliance. You're not trying to force us to do something. You're threatening us with punishment. Forcing the government to successfully execute foreign diplomacy is an improper attempt to force the district court's vacated TRO. They're nailing it right now. The judge's order was illegal and vacated. He has no power to enforce it. So he's morphing it into contempt, papering over it, using other law that doesn't apply to the executive to then enliven his original TRO, to force the same outcome as the original TRO. It's very sneaky. They're trying to do that to intrude on the core power of the president. The only way the government could purge this is by going and gaining custody, which is exactly what the TRO mandated they do. But under the Constitution, these matters are exclusively entrusted to the political branches of the government. They are immune from judicial inquiry. Article 2 gives it to the executive branch. And so your order is impermissible, and it's trying to wrestle this matter away by hanging a contempt sword of Damocles over senior officials, just hanging there by a thread. Relief is especially warranted because the district court's order was fundamentally misconceived from the start. That's right, it was, Boasberg. Needlessly prompting a constitutional confrontation over criminal contempt. It should have never arisen at all. The government did not violate the TROs at all. They complied completely, let alone violate any other unambiguous command. Even civil contempt is a potent weapon that you shouldn't resort to. But you skipped right over that. Here in the TROs, the written orders memorialized in writing what we shouldn't do. And we didn't do it. The second TRO then gave us more details And no such removal occurred after the second TRO. But then Boasberg had how dare you? He's trying to catch Trump in contempt. He said, you violated my order. You should have understood what I thought, not what I wrote. The court determined some enemy aliens were removed before the order, but were not transferred until after the order, right? The planes were in the air. So they say once the plane left, they're gone. The judge said, nope, until you handed them the handcuffs and you said, bye, afuera, adios, they were yours. Disagreeing about that. Now, under their view, the word remove in the TRO did not refer to the physical removal. It was the legal removal. Now, regardless of the correct answer, okay, it's ambiguous. Regardless of what you think about which one's right, it's ambiguous. There's an argument for both. It's self-acknowledged. Both definitions are possible. You can't hold somebody in contempt when they have at least a plausible argument for interpreting your crap order. In all events, the district court's reading is incorrect anyways. The district court held that context made it more clear, which included all the things, but it's actually the opposite. They challenged the president's authority under the AEA, and it was about the territory and the removal from the territory of the United States. It was about territorial removal, the word. It didn't have to do with custody. Man, they're good. So even citing U.S. code, right? It was, they were saying that they're going to leave the territory. They weren't challenging custody. Once we left, they were done. Good. The district court's contrary inferences from context undermine its post hoc non-territorial interpretation. Right now, they're trying to say, no, we meant custody. Well, why'd you say territory then? First, the court pointed to a colloquy about compliance with its first TRO, but as the lawyer stated at the hearing, the named plaintiffs were not on the planes anyways, right? The actual gangbangers who were suing in this case weren't on the planes at all. And the judge and because they weren't, the judge certified a class for everyone else. Now, second, the district court pointed to its oral comments about how the court would lose equitable jurisdiction. But the court sidestepped on its most important statement, saying, right, sure, I mean, once they are out of the country, I'm not sure what I can do there, right? They're gone. Out of the country, not out of custody. See that in italics. You said country. They left the sea line. You didn't say custody, judge. How are you going to punish us for using your own words? The court later reasoned, but while that was just custody based, the statement was the opposite. No, it was territorial. It wasn't about custody. So we're just doing what you said. Third, judge, you referred in your oral statements at the hearing to inform clients that any plane that is going to take off or is in the air needs to be returned. However, critically, in your order, you didn't put that in there. You said you memorialize it so we don't have to race to write it down. And in your written order, you didn't put the turnaround, the plane stuff in there. That's why we didn't do it. We're following what you wrote. It's perverse to punish us based on this oral statement. You said you don't have to race to write this down. I'll issue a written minute order memorializing what I want you to do so you don't have to write it down. Then wrote it down. In it, there's nothing about turning the plane around. It's perverse to punish us for that. Indeed, under black letter law across multiple circuits, Trump had to treat the written order as governing. It's what it says. The written order takes precedent over the oral orders. Now, the court also reasoned that even if its oral command was not directly enforceable, you should have understood it. No, sorry. Longstanding precedence elevates this. The writing takes precedent over the oral. And so we have followed it to the T. Now, this is appropriate to appeal right now. This is carrying the hallmarks of a preliminary injunction. And so, DC Circuit, you should listen to this. This court has emphasized special solitude for cases that are threatening the executive branch. And so you should stay Judge Boasberg. We're going to win. This is a grave violation of the separation of powers. We have a right to relief that is clear and indisputable. It is our prerogative to control foreign powers and prosecutorial discretion. We don't have any other means of relief other than this appeal. These incursions on Article 2 are massive and mandamus is appropriate. And so in conclusion, DC Circuit, you should stay the contempt order pending appeal or grant relief that terminate these criminal contempt proceedings and do it now. Signed, by the attorneys Drew Ensign for Trump's DOJ going in to the DC Circuit Court of Appeals. And we'll see what they say. Even if it's a quick denial, of course, Trump will be appealing this to SCOTUS, and then SCOTUS will have to come in here and fix this because they didn't do a sufficient job of it the first time around. But honestly, SCOTUS was giving Boasberg an opportunity to save face and to just kick this case and boot it down. Now he's opened criminal contempt proceedings against the executive branch for doing its job. So I can't imagine the Supreme Court is going to be happy about that. But if you're concerned that any of this unconstitutional and illegality that's occurring by these courts, and by the way, Boasberg even admitted the Supreme Court found his orders were defective, they lacked jurisdiction. He wrote it himself, said you had to follow it anyways. So Trump obviously doesn't and is not going to. But what's happening is the deportations are continuing, and they will continue until our country improves. You can see this is a 4-pager that got dropped from the gangbanger lawyers. This one came out from all these ACLU. Look at all of them. You imagine this? Can you imagine if you're like a citizen and you just need some help and you have like all these lawyers coming in to help you out, all these gang, look at all of them. It's like 50 lawyers on this thing. Democracy Forward too. Oh, they're all just so pathetic. Like, just put my name on there too. Can I have my name on there too? Losers. So anyways, they sent this one in. They said, Your Honor, the gangbang lawyers respectfully request that the court expedite its decision on the pending motion because they're freaked, saying immediately issue a new TRO. This is in Boasberg's courtroom. He doesn't have jurisdiction over the TROs or the case. He says, we want 30 days notice before these deportations occur so they can all get lawyers and file claims. They say, here's what we're learning. Last night and early today, the gangbang lawyers learned that the government has begun giving notices of removals to class members in English only, which is the language in America. They should learn it if they want to come here illegally, which do not say how much time individuals have to contest their removal or even how to do so. Well, a copy of the notice is attached, and officers last night told class members that they will be removed within 24 hours, which expires as early as this afternoon. Well, the Supreme Court didn't say they had to write it in Spanish, did they? How many different languages should we provide? There's people from China and like Senegal and like all these different places. English. If you're coming to America, you're expected to learn English, especially when we're deporting you out of our country for being here illegally. Get some flashcards. Upon information and belief, individuals have already been loaded onto buses. Saying a U.S. government official has also acknowledged that removals are imminent. Outstanding. Laura Ramiro and Louis Martinez also posted about that. The government has refused to give any information about these notices and removal notices to class counsel despite multiple requests. Because the ACLU now wants to represent everybody, okay? Even people who are not named, because there's a class action of Tren de Aragua gangbangers, thanks to Judge Boasberg and the Supreme Court. It says, as far as the plaintiffs know, the gangbanger lawyers, the government has not even given this notice to class members' immigration attorneys. They gave it to the defendants who are going to be afuera, and they can give it to their lawyers. Like, that's how it works. They got a notice, give it to your lawyer. They'll give it to them. Without this court's immediate intervention, dozens or hundreds of Tren de Aragua gangbanger class members may be removed to CCOT within hours. I sure hope so, man. I sure hope so. All without any real opportunity to seek judicial review. They had plenty of it. If they were in our country illegally and they're detained, there was some process that occurred there. They just want additional hearings in Article 3 courts to which they're not entitled. They want extra special privileges, okay, that they're not entitled to. They just are saying this is the default. In defiance of due process and the Supreme Court's order, they have an opportunity. They can file a habeas petition. They can give it to their lawyers and file that. And their lawyers can file it. Now, as plaintiffs explained in their motion, adequate notice is a prerequisite to seeking habeas. Without it, most class members will be unable to seek review of their summary removal and their life sentence in CCOT. You don't know what their sentence is. It's a class. You don't know who they are, what their thing is. they can go into El Salvador. In fact, Kilmar was having margaritas with Democrat senators. Such a claim for notice need not and typically cannot be brought in habeas. This action is one of their only chances to secure the judicial review that the Supreme Court held the government must provide. That's not true. They said an opportunity for review. This is what they're doing, right? They're trying to conflate an opportunity to review and the ability to file a petition for habeas with like a bona fide trial. You have to give them a hearing in an Article 3 court outside of the immigration sequence. The government is now seeking to jettison that. Now, plaintiffs therefore request a court immediately issue the TRO and like a new TRO. Just to be clear, this judge has no jurisdiction. The Supreme Court said his prior TROs are vacated to ensure that class members are given 30 days to find lawyers and file habeas petitions. They'll all be ACLU lawyers. Alternatively, the court can grant shorter period than 30 days while it considers our motions. They say they're located in Texas, and the court, wow, look at this, these crybaby ACLU babies. The district court in the Northern District of Texas, where Blue Bonnet is located, has refused to act on their motion. So they're going to cry to Washington, D.C., to baby Boasberg. Daddy, how fast? They're not doing what we want in Texas. They're not going to hold a TRO or hold a status conference because there's no basis for it. Shout out to the Texas judges, right? This is why they're forum shopping these courts in D.C. So Lee Gellerant and the rest of the ACLU gangbanging lawyers, they say the court should immediately issue a TRO requiring the government to give these terrorists 30 days notice in both English and Spanish before taking any action to remove the class member from the United States. Opposed this, the Supreme Court said they needed notice, not English notice. Okay, so lots of fun from that one because those deportations are still happening and the ACLU is freaking out. Oh, class members, we can't get to them. Let's see if we had any updates on that from Judge Boasberg. In addition to the notice, we do. Here's what the judge says. Having reviewed the motion for a temporary restraining order and motion to expedite, the court orders the parties appear for a hearing tonight. The hearing will proceed by video conference and telephone for members of the public, which we cannot stream because they scream at you. Or worse, so ordered by Chief Judge Boasberg. So there was a hearing today, and we don't know what happened. So we'll see what the judge does. But my guess is he grants it. And he calls it compliance with his contempt findings to prevent ongoing continual contempt. And the judge now becomes judge, jury, executioner. That's Judge James Boasberg, this guy right here. So absolutely unconstitutional. Trump is appealing this. We're going to wait for the DC Circuit to give us some guidance on what comes next. Thanks for subscribing and joining as we do. All right, so interesting things happening there in DC. Let's turn our attention now to the Kilmar case, because here's what's happening in El Salvador. Kilmar, Abrego, wife beater, human trafficker, MS-13 gangbanger Garcia was released temporarily, we think, maybe, to meet with Democratic fanboy senator, as seen in this photo. This was posted by the El Salvadorian president, called Nayib Bukele, originally posting this. And remember, the Democratic Party and Judge Zenas, who's been the judge in charge of this case, this woman seen here on your screen, who was appointed by Barack Obama with no judicial experience at all, who doesn't know how to analyze evidence, who was explaining that Kilmar was innocent and had no evidence presented to her about any of his prior criminal misdeeds or anything else that would have intimated that he was MS-13, ignored all of that, but she has been in charge of this case and was freaked out. They want proof of life. She's been demanding updates every single day that we've been reading here, declaration after declaration, saying, is he alive? What are you doing to get him out? All these things. And Nayib says, okay, Kilmar Abrego Garcia, miraculously risen from the death camps and torture now sipping margaritas with Senator Van Hollen in the tropical paradise of El Salvador. And they look like they're having a good time. Now, we don't know if Kilmar has the ability to speak English or not. We've also seen these tattoos here on his fingers. One of them looks like, according to several people, a 13, a marijuana plant, a smiley face, and it's been covered up in many photographs by his loving wife, who was the same person who filed 2 orders of protections against him. So that meeting took place, and there's a lot of interesting conversation about this, right? Was this a political victory for the Democrats? Is this like a success photo where he says, I'm going to go down there and stop Trump from violating the due process of all these gangbanging, wife-beating terrorists? Is it a victory for them? Or is it a victory for Nayib? Is it a victory for Trump? Is this going to be something that continues to blow up in their face? We'll see. For some reason, they're latching onto this. I think there's a lot of explanations for it. One is in particular, the Democrats, the reason they do this stuff is because, as we've talked a lot about here, their MO is not about a unifying love of America or a unifying love of our values. Instead, they treat people like trading cards. And okay, we got trans over here, we got the lesbians over here, we got the gays over here, we got the blacks over here, the Asian American Pacific Islanders over here, we got the trans binaries, 2QX, whatever, we got the gangbangers over here, right? They just cobble them all together, and the Latinkses are a part of that equation. And so the Latinkses did not go for them a whole lot this last election. In fact, Trump had a big resurgence in that demographic because Democrats have a hard time understanding this, but not everybody in their little bundles believes the same thing. Just because somebody might be Hispanic doesn't mean that they necessarily like and love illegal immigration, but they think they're such racist individuals that they think that is the same. Like everybody's just this one big homogenous mix. It's disgusting how they think of people, but that's what they do. So this could be that, where they're going down to create a rally for one core constituency that they're losing badly, or it could be something darker. It could be they are trying to perpetuate this narrative that this constituency is under attack and lying to them. Chuck Schumer is literally lying to them, saying the Supreme Court ordered effectuate. That's not what they ordered at all. We saw the post here. So if they're lying openly, maybe there's a darker reason for what they're doing. Maybe they're trying to instigate some sort of deeper animosity that will parlay into future elections, right? It's not about this per se, but it's about shocking and agitating and fearing a population with lies to make them beholden constituencies forever, or to instigate a conflict between the two sides. So a lot of dark stuff happening there, but they're going to call it a victory. Now, there's a little margarita scandal that's happening here. Look at that cherry on top. That glass is rimmed with some delicious sugar. And they're looking like they're having a nice convo here, looking nice and happy. He's paying close attention to him. Yeah. Tell me about that time you trafficked 7 people into our country. How trying was that? Was it shocking when you got stopped by the police? I bet it was very scary. When they called the FBI, you probably thought you were going to jail for being in our country illegally and trafficking people through our country, right? Must have been pretty scary. Good thing Joe Biden's FBI let you go, though, huh? Yeah. Sorry Trump's doing this to you. You should be free running around our country. So it's a margarita scandal, of course. And Nayib said after he was released, now that he's been confirmed healthy, he gets the honor of staying in El Salvador's custody. Firm handshakes between America and El Salvador. So I don't know exactly what that means, if he's going back into CCOT, going back into another facility, or what his particular situation is. But the Democrats made first contact with their new biggest hero, gangbanger, wife beater, Abrego Garcia. Now, the White House is pointing out that they actually care about Americans. They said, we are not the same. Trump meeting here with Patty Morin, who lost her daughter to an illegal violently, who attacked and eliminated her, versus the Democrats. And you'll notice that the Democrats did something. They either removed or finished the margaritas. Having a great time. And now the senator is leaning in. He says, hey, take a picture of us now. But get rid of these margaritas. We don't want everybody to see how hammered we are. Tell me about your fentanyl trafficking. I want to know what we can do to support your people and your human traffickers in our country. Wow. Strange photo, but they're doubling down on that. The White House obviously saying we are not the same. Trump cares about American citizens who are being attacked by these people that the Democrats are literally sitting down with. It's almost like he's going to pat him on the shoulder or maybe rub his face a little bit. Come here, Abrego. Come over here. Disgusting, folks. So that happened. Now, we also have Ted Cruz saying, you want to really find someone in your life who looks at you the way Democratic senators look at illegal, gangbanging, MS-13, wife-beaten, human trafficking gang members. Here's what Senator Van Hollen said. I said my main goal of the trip was to meet with Kilmar. Tonight I had that chance. I have called his wife, Jennifer, to pass along his message of love. I look forward to providing a full update on my return. All right, we do have some updates on Kilmar, no doubt about that. Lots of stuff being reported on him about what is actually occurring, because we saw in that photograph these tattoos seen right here on the hand. And you might say, well, a lot of people have hand tats or whatever. That one looks like marijuana right there. That one looks like, I don't know, a 1 or a 7, or maybe, I don't know. That one looks like a smiley face. Don't know really what that one is. Maybe if that one's that one. I don't know what they are. But what's interesting is that the wife covered them up. You see here in the photograph right there. So the person who brought this to our attention is a very good journalist you guys have probably never heard of. His name is Andy NGO. He's on X. Follow him at Mr. Andy NGO. His name is Kilmar. He says Kilmar Abrego Garcia's wife, Jennifer Vasquez Sura, has strategically censored her partner's left hand in the photo. She uploaded on her TikTok to promote her GoFundMe. Oh, says, hey, Naib, can you release the full resolution photos? The one appears to be a marijuana leaf, a smile, and the number 13. So he says maybe that's the number 13 there, which I can't really tell. If you wrote it like that, I guess. I don't know. But she covered it up. That's for sure. Why'd she put those hearts right there, huh? I miss you so much. I won't stop fighting, I promise. Kilmar, wife beater, Abrego. Why is she covering it up? Oh, we know why. Because she knows what they are. She doesn't want us to see them. But now we've seen them. So thank you, Naib, for also showing that to us and getting us those photographs, clipping those for us to see. So I think there's something interesting going on there, obviously. And we also saw that Will Chamberlain posted this one. The New York Times was reporting this. They say Mr. Bukele in a social media post even crowed that Kilmar Abrego Garcia was miraculously risen from the death camps and torture, was now sipping margaritas. But here is what they report. According to a person familiar with the situation, Bukele aide, placed the 2 glasses with cherries and salted rims on the table in front of Mr. Van Hollen and Mr. Abrego in their meeting in an attempt to stage the photo. I don't think so. I mean, that's clever if they did that. I think they were just being good hosts, though. They just said, oh, Senator, you came here from, they weren't trying to stage anything. They just were being gracious hosts. Oh, Senator, you're crying up a storm over here. You must have come all the way down from Maryland when you abandoned your constituents to come hang out with gangbangers. Here, have a couple of drinks. Here, have some drinks. And they're like, oh, great. Slamming them back. Then they realized we shouldn't be doing this because they got some sense, cleared the table, and then took the real photo. So I hope they enjoyed it while the rest of America was suffering from the onslaught of illegal immigration. They were drinking margaritas. Now, here's what he said about this. He looks a little bit to me still drunk, probably from last night. I don't know how many margaritas they had there in El Salvador, but he was partying with terrorists, MS-13 gangbangers. Who knows what they got into last night? This dude had the time of his life last night. He's like, we're in El Salvador, baby. Let's papusa it up. More papusas for you. Papusas for you. Papusas for everybody. Here's Senator Van Hollen.
Now I just want to take a moment. I hadn't planned to do this, but as I was landing on the airplane, I got a transcript of some questions President Trump was asked at the White House today. about what I would call Margarita Gate. I don't know if you guys have been following this, but President Bukele, after I met with Kilmar, did this tweet showing us at a table with these two glasses.
Slamming back booze.
So here's what happened. When I first sat down with Kilmar, we just had glasses of water on the table. I think maybe some coffee. And as we were talking, one of the government people came over and deposited two other glasses on the table with ice, and I don't know if it was salt or sugar around the top, but they look like margaritas. And if you look at the one they put in front of Kilmar, it actually had a little less liquid than the one in front of me, to try to make it look, I assume, like he drank out of it. Let me just be very clear. Neither of us touched the drinks that were in front of us. And if you want to play a little Sherlock Holmes, I'll tell you how you can know that. So if you look at the video or the picture I sent out from the beginning of our meeting, you'll see there are no glasses on the table.
That was after.
So you'll see in later videos they are on the table.
Yeah.
But they made a little mistake.
Anybody can do that.
Careful, right? If you sip out of one of those glasses, some of whatever it was, salt or sugar, would disappear. You would see a gap. There's no gap. Nobody drank any margaritas or sugar water or whatever it is. But this is a lesson into the lengths that President Bukele will do.
Wow, what an evil dictator.
About what's going on. And it's also shows the lengths that the Trump administration and the president will go to, because when he was asked about a reporter about this, he just went along for the ride.
Well, because you were hanging out with a terrorist, hanging out there, sipping whatever, whether it was a margarita or water or coffee, it doesn't really matter, okay? The fact that he's going to zoom in so granularly on this, it wasn't a margarita. That's not the point, moron. Don't you understand that? You could have coffee, you could have a milkshake, you could have whatever you want. Having a drink of water is the same thing. It's funny if it's a margarita, and it's a troll, obviously. But if you're going to come out here and spend 2 minutes explaining that you got trolled and explain I didn't have a sip of a margarita, you look like a fool, even more than you already have. So point goes to Naib on that one. Pretty embarrassing that he would go down there and then have to explain his cocktail dinner party, cup of tea, or whatever was going on down there when he was hanging out with illegals. So that is where the Democrats are. They're explaining their margarita obsession, but we also are learning more. Now, Sherlock Holmes over there, Democratic Sherlock Holmes, should have been watching this show and reading the news, because he would have found other things about Kilmar and not had to piece together every granular of salt there on his mojito. But here's what they wrote. Patrick Leahy over for the Tennessee Star says they've now got body cam footage of that 2022 traffic stop of Kilmar wife beater Abrego when he was stopped in Tennessee by the Tennessee police and when they let him go. Remember, he was stopped with 7 people in his car and did not have a license. They tell us they got on Friday today images of Kilmar Abrego Garcia right there driving the car. They were just going down to Texas to get some barbecue down there and do some construction or something. But here's what they tell us. On Friday, they got an image of Kilmar when he was driving, caught by the Tennessee Highway Patrol. They have now confirmed the stop that occurred in 2022. Now, the image is captured from the passenger side of the vehicle, showing one of him and 7 passengers sitting next to him. He's looking at the officer, as we saw in the photo. Now, within the image, Abrego's vehicle, which a source told the Star was a 2001 Chevrolet, he claimed was registered to his employer at a Maryland construction company, doesn't have many personal effects, though a bottle of water and a plastic bag are visible on the dashboard. THP confirmed the 2022 stop on Thursday and reported that the Biden-era FBI instructed officers on the scene. They call, hey, we got this van of illegals. This truck, literally truck full of illegals. Guy doesn't have a license. Hey, Christopher Wray, what should we do? Let him go. They did not confirm the date of the incident. Now, sources have told the Star that Abrego was driving without a valid license, shouldn't have been driving that car, and that the circumstances of the stop made THP suspect he was engaged in human trafficking. Derp. Curiously, the Star was told by multiple sources the stop occurred December 6, 2022. Just the News later reported the stop happened in November 22. The Daily Caller reported it happened on December 1, 2022. So we don't know. The image obtained by the Star appears to suggest that at least one of the officer's body camera videos was not uploaded to a police database until January 9th, 2023, saying that this might indicate that they continue to investigate the stop even after the Biden-era FBI instructed the agency to release Abrego Garcia and his associates. It could also indicate that the video from the incident was requested by the FBI. Oh, wonder what that's about. So is that why they're rounding up the wagons, circling the wagons around this dude? Because he's one of theirs. The Star obtained the image less than 1 day after it filed an opens record request. And is that why Boasberg is making these rulings with the, or rather, Zenus, which oversees THP, seeking all dashboard and body camera videos? And they got the image, but they're seeking everything else. They want officers' logs, documentation of the stop. They want to confirm receipt. They haven't confirmed receipt of the request. He's a citizen of El Salvador. We know the backstory on him. Shout out to Tom Pappert. Shout out to Tom Pappert for staying on this story and digging into that. So the camera footage is out there. Guy is with 7 other people. Very little personal effects. In other reports, we read that there was no, they didn't have any luggage or anything with them because they were illegal and being trafficked into the country. So Bill Malugin over from Fox News also shared this, says DHS has provided Fox News a body cam image and the report from when Kilmar was pulled over in 2022. Per the report, he had 8 people with no luggage in the car with him. Claimed to be driving them from Texas to Maryland for construction. The report says Abrego Garcia was evasive during questioning, had an expired license. He was not arrested or charged with any crime. Carry on. Go on your way. Which is wild. I mean, you get pulled over for expired tags, they'll give you an enema. He was not arrested or charged with any crime in relation to the incident. You're free to go. But you're driving home after like 2 a.m. or something, right? You get stopped. You drink anymore? DHS says the report has yesterday's date due to redactions made of law enforcement and sensitive info, but this is an old document. All right, so they updated it by redacting it, but it's actually old. So there's a photo. Redacted that one out. Driving a 2001 Ford Chevrolet. Eight people in there. Like, how do you get 8 people in a Ford Chevrolet? Are they in the back of the truck? Like, even if you got the extended cab, how you getting eight people in a Ford? I'm sorry, in a Chevy. That's ridiculous, right? They got to be in the trunk. All right, in the truck, in the bed. So here they write from DHS. It's 417, but just because of the redactions, it's much older. They say, all right, this is a report. Synopsis. Abrego Garcia, is suspected of labor and human trafficking. Isn't that fun? On December 1st, 2022, the Combined Intelligence Unit received information that Kilmar Abrego Garcia was queried in the NCIC NICS, which by the Tennessee Highway Patrol. DHS support sources indicate that Abrego was identified through official law enforcement investigations as a member of the Mara Salvatrucha MS-13. There it is again for the thick heads on the left. Abrego Garcia is suspected of human trafficking. No kidding. On December 1st, 2022, the suspect was observed speeding and unable to maintain its lane. Yeah, more traffic violations. Might be maybe drunk. Did they do a DUI? Unable to maintain your lane, kind of swerving in the lane. Maybe because he had 7 people in the car. Was subsequently pulled over by trooper redacted. Upon approach to the vehicle, encountering officer noted there were 8 other individuals in the vehicle with the subject, who was identified at the driver. 8 other plus the driver, so 9. Subject stated he was driving 3 days ago on 11/27/2022 from Houston, Texas to Temple Hills, Maryland, via St. Louis, Missouri, to bring in people to perform construction work. There was no luggage in the vehicle, leading the encountering officer to suspect this was a human trafficking incident. Dun, dun, dun. All the passengers gave the same home address as the subject's home address. During the interview, the subject pretended to speak less English than he was capable of and attempted to put encountering officer off track by responding to questions with questions. When asked what the work is in construction, or when asked what relationship he had to the registered owner of the vehicle, whose car is this? He said, well, the owner of the vehicle is my boss and that his work is construction. The encountering officer decided not to cite the subject for driving infractions because he goes, this dude's illegal, but gave him a warning citation for driving with an expired license anyways. The driver's license is MD limited term temporary. Encountering officer gathered names and other occupants in the vehicle, but could not even read their handwriting. Okay, yeah, of course. Can't write. Could not pursue due to no did not pursue further due to no citation being issued. Yeah, got it. What a ridiculous thing. As a result, he did not pass the names, dates of birth, or IDs of those individuals. No incident report was created, but the computer-aided dispatch number is this. They can't write. They can't speak English, so our law enforcement can't do a damn thing. You're free to go. On 10/10/19, no IDs, nothing. Good luck. Have a nice life. It's crazy, man, because I'm a criminal defense attorney, right? And I represented a lot of people who never got any benefit like that. Okay, you're driving home and a cop stops you. You're like, oh, who are you? Oh, I can't tell you. What, do you know why I pulled you over? I don't speak English. Oh, are you a citizen? No. Do you have any luggage? No. Totally suspicious person. Yes. Okay, well, you're free to go. Sorry for the inconvenience. Have a nice life. Nothing. I won't follow up on it or anything. Like, it's ridiculous, right? And you've been stopped by the police. Like, could you imagine getting this treatment? You have an expired tag. Cops like, oh, I'd like to have a full cavity exam of your entire life. These guys just, yeah, hey, there's a McDonald's up there. Grab some food. You guys look hungry. Here, have some money from the government. So per Prince George, is sick. On 10/10, the IJ issued a written decision granting withholding of removal. Now, per the Prince George S., and look, that's the immigration judge. So per the Prince George S. County Police Gang Unit, Abrego Garcia was validated as a member of Mara Salva Truca. Subject was identified as a member of the gang as Chequeo from the Western Clique, a transnational criminal street gang. This information was provided by a trusted, tested source who they call tested, not trusted, who has provided truthful, accurate information in the past. See Prince George S. County Police Department and the gang sheet. That's their hero. That's who a Democrat senator gangbanger is hanging out with, right? That's their dude. So here's some more saying, according to the EARM case comments dated October 26, someone wants to move to Houston, Texas to be closer to his family, his parents. He has an HVAC employee. He's been living in Maryland for 3 years, has 3 children. Subject was withholding, no asylum or CAT. Not a definite decision, but is thinking about wanting to move next year. There he is, 1995, El Salvador, MS-13, gangbanger, stopped for human trafficking. Obviously, that's what that was, by Bill Malugin, giving us the details. So all of that happened. And now, even more, they're confirming this in other locations. Andy NGO posted this. He says the BBC Verify looks into the Kilmar Abrego Garcia case. And here's what they were writing about, saying, even confirming, the judge who presided over his case in 2019 said that based on confidential information, they write, there was sufficient evidence to support he was in a gang, and that was upheld by another judge. So he remained in custody. Even the BBC's talking about it. They say that his fear was based on well-founded fear of prosecution from the Barrio 18, which was the main rival gang of MS-13, and that he was being extorted by them. He also had orders of protections filed against him and more, right? So the actual truth about this is slowly starting to get out. And we saw this even over from CNN, clipped over via Gunther Eagleman on X, saying that they're reporting on some of this too at CNN. Here's what that sounded like.
To David Culver, who has been speaking with sources close to President Bukele in El Salvador for new details tonight on Abrego Garcia. And David, you were first to report right here on Out Front that El Salvador says it has additional evidence about Abrego Garcia. Have officials provided any new details to back this up?
Well, this is something I've been pushing on, Kate. And in the discussion that you were just having just now, I mean, you bring up a really good point, and that is there is precedence here for sending certain people back. El Salvador has had people come in to say, no, we don't want these individuals, and to send them back to the U.S. What's different here, and this is coming from a source very close to President Bukele, is that this individual is from El Salvador, Abrego Garcia, who we're talking about, and they do say that they have evidence against him. Now, last week, as we reported here, they wouldn't give specifics and they wouldn't provide me any proof. When I pressed a little bit more today with this source just a few hours ago, he tells me that it's twofold. One, prior criminal records, not giving me specifics on that, but suggesting that it's part of the criminal records that they have a meticulous file on in El Salvador. Amazing. And these go back decades. And the other part of that is his allegation that there are gang tattoos that Abrego Garcia has that have been covered up.
Amazing. Thank you, CNN, for reporting that. They're having a hard time. You can see probably a little tension in her face, like, oh, crap, our hero. Even El Salvador knows this guy is a gangbanger. Now, I wanted to spend a quick minute on this. This is the order that came out from the United States immigration judge that they keep screaming about is being violated. And they forget how the jurisdiction and the structure of the immigration courts work in the first place. Now, this was a point that Stephen Miller made in passing, and I'd like to see him make this a lot more because I think it's a good one. But when people said that there was no due process provided in his removal, that's just simply not true. Okay. This document itself is evidence of due process. Okay. So his entire claim was reviewed. Now, this judge did deny his claim of asylum, to be clear. The judge also denied his application for withholding of removal, meaning he could not be removed under the Convention Against Torture, but did grant the withholding of removal pursuant to one subsection, which was to El Salvador. Okay, so no asylum, but was granted withholding of removal in this order. Now, many people hear the term judge, okay? Judge, judge, judge. And we all just think it means the same. Or due process too, right? You heard that term a lot, and the left is conflating that to mean they get appointed a lawyer, they get a full jury trial, they go to the Article 3 courts, they can do everything they want like a regular citizen, even though they're not a regular citizen. But to be clear, this judge and this entire case, we look at a lot of cases here, is not in Article 3. What you see when you go to the top of this opinion, which was provided by their lawyers, this court is coming out of the Executive Office for Immigration Review right here in removal proceedings. This is from the United States Department of Justice. Do you see how that's different than a different court? We're not in the District of Maryland. We're not in the court of whatever. We're in the Justice Department. This is like an administrative law hearing. This is no different than anything that you would see in a DUI case. For example, there's two things that happen in a DUI case. One is a criminal proceeding that happens in the courts. The other is an administrative proceeding that happens with the MVD or the DMV, whatever your state calls it. And the executive branch gets to process those claims. Now, in this case, the Article 2 power over immigration and the powers that were delegated to the executive branch came from Congress, and they came in the form of the establishment of the Executive Office for Immigration Review. It's all housed under the Department of Justice. So when I made the argument here many times before that the Alien Enemies Act in combination with Congress is the president essentially overruling, and the attorney general, which they're allowed to do by law, other judges in this administrative proceeding. Okay, so it's all within the power. I think this case freaks people out because they think that the executive branch is overturning an Article 3 judge, which is not the case. This is an Article 2 judge, and you can even look this up in Wikipedia. right? This, as you saw here, where did this judge's opinion come from? Right here. Executive Office for Immigration Review, okay? EOIR. EOIR. Now, when you look up what that is, it is called the EOIR, Executive Office for Immigration Review. This is the due process, okay? He got it. It's all done. He got the due process. He had a full trial on it. He didn't present any evidence that he was not MS-13. He lost. He appealed that up, lost again, changed his claim to Papusa attack, but the findings on MS-13 were already adjudicated. He had the due process there. He's not entitled to the Article 3 courts in the same way that a citizen is. So the left is trying to conflate the two. Do not let them do that. Judge David Jones, who issued that order of withholding of removal against El Salvador, is an executive branch employee, is not an Article 3 judge, works for the executive branch. Here's the office. The Executive Office for Immigration Review is a sub-agency of the U.S. Department of Justice, whose chief function is to conduct removal proceedings. They are administrative proceedings that determine removability. Created in 1983 by the DOJ, 5 different agencies. Then they've got the INS, they've got the Department of Labor, because it's about removal. These people, when you're coming here, they have to be processed quickly. They don't get processed through the actual courts. EOIR adjudicates things. Congress passed a bunch of statutes that explains how they have to do that. There's a structure here. You've got the OCIJ, trial level immigration judges, deputy directors. The Office of the Chief Immigration Judge sees 500 immigration judges in 60 immigration courts and more. Now, they adjudicate these things. Now, even it says it here. Look, immigration judges, look, it says it in Wikipedia. Amazing. Unlike Article 3 judges, do not have life tenure. They're not appointed by the president or confirmed by the Senate as required under the Appointments Clause. Instead, they are civil servants appointed by the Attorney General. Okay. The director of the EOIR may also designate temporary immigration judges and more. Now, the adjudication, it still can't be unconstitutional. Like, they're not like their own courts where they can just trample all over the Constitution or anything. But they've got their process. Like, they've gotten their process. He's gotten his process already. He's been adjudicated. An immigration judge in the same immigration sequence found MS-13. That finding is conclusive. Once Trump issued a proclamation, they just went through. They said, oh, MS-13, MS-13. Gangbangers, you're gone. It's already been adjudicated. Okay, the status became clear. The change was warranted. He's not entitled to another removal hearing. The findings are conclusive. It's already done. If he wants to challenge it in habeas, he can do that. But don't let people tell you that there's some judge somewhere in Article 3 that needs to have a separate hearing. He got it. The finding was already provided in the immigration system. In fact, the order of withholding is essentially confirming a lot of the same concerns, right? That he was in a conflict with a foreign gang kind of a situation, which confirms the gang status essentially. And withholding doesn't apply to gang members. We covered that in the U.S. Code, saying Pamela Bondi has an exception to that. So just let's be clear. It was an executive administrative hearing in the executive branch that made that finding. The finding in the executive branch was elevated. Okay, he's been labeled a terrorist, adjudicated a terrorist, due processed as a terrorist, appealed as a terrorist, as MS-13. MS-13 then got labeled as a terrorist. Now he's gone. But the finding of MS-13 is done. And you can't review Trump's determination that MS-13 is terrorism. That's not the judge's prerogative or ability to do that. So I hope that helps clear that up. And please communicate that to these people who are saying Trump's in direct violation of a judge. No, he's not. It's in the Article 2. It's an Article 2 decision that got overruled by the President of the United States, and Trump runs Article 2. not the courts. They want you to take this out and make it an Article 3 case. Okay, so enough of that. Now, we saw what is happening there. We also saw that, like, for example here, Judge David Jones, the judge who ruled on this, he was appointed by Matthew Whitaker, who's now working for Trump at NATO. Okay, was appointed by the DOJ. It's separate from Article 3. And I think that freaks a lot of people out. The guy got plenty of due process and has been dealt with appropriately. So here was the latest declaration from the Trump administration. They're explaining that, hey, Judge Zenas, here's our update from yesterday. They say, I, Joseph N. Mazzara, acting general counsel, write this to you, Judge. Here's the latest on Kilmar. Your Honor, please refer to my prior declarations for the foundation of my personal knowledge, saying, given the government's prior clear and unequivocal notice to the court about how the government will facilitate Abrego's return within the contours of the law, there are no further updates for you. I declare this under penalty of perjury to be true. Came in from Joseph Mazzara. And remember, they will facilitate the return of Kilmar. As soon as he shows up to the border, they're going to arrest him and deport him again. We remember that was their position on it. So there was another filing, I think, that just dropped from them today from Trump. There it is, the second status report. Let's see what this one looks like and if there's anything else juicy inside. No, it's the same as yesterday. I am here, Joseph Mazzara. It is literally the exact same. Given the government's prior clear and unequivocal notice to the court, I have no further updates again. So they're just over it, as you could expect. So that happened. Now, meanwhile, the Democrat gangbang lovers who like wife-beating illegal aliens who traffic humans through our states are ignoring Patty Morin, and she was disappointed about this. Here's a little bit of what she had to say.
Or anger that these crimes were being committed against these women and children. And now I have a senator who's in El Salvador who is loudly advocating for another immigrant who's in the country illegally, has broken federal law by doing that, has beaten his wife, violence, has broken state law by doing that. And yet his actions are, he's advocating for this man. And he's saying, well, he's a dad. He's been a good guy. He's been here. There are a lot of fathers that are in jail. The point is, they keep saying, rule of law. But by him going down there, he's advocating for this person that has actually broken the law that he claims to be upholding by advocating for someone who has broken federal law and state law. And his silence towards my daughter and towards Kaylee shows that he has no, where his values are, that he would rather value the criminal than the victim. Mm-hmm. And I don't want my taxpayer money to go to that. I don't want my taxpayer money to pay for a senator who is willing to advocate for someone who has knowingly committed crimes and not advocate for my daughter, who is a victim of a crime, a violent and brutal one.
And going down and having margaritas with MS-13 gang members, not appropriate for a senator or anybody. Now, Trump was out today and was going through a process whereby he was going to read a little litany and provide some details on who Kilmar is, and the gangbang lovers over at MSNBC cut him off.
In 2019, Garcia was issued a deportation order. Two separate judges affirmed Garcia was a member of MS-13, which is a gang that may be even worse.
We've been watching President Donald Trump there swearing in the new administrator of the CMS, the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid, Dr. Mehmet Oz, during this conversation.
Cut it. She doesn't want to hear it because the truth hurts. Doesn't it hurt? Oh no, our lover boy is getting exposed here. Well, here's what Trump actually said. Here's a little bit more of that from the Oval Office today.
There aren't enough of them. We got to get some more of them. But no, I appreciate that question. No, look, he's a fake. I know them all. They're all fake. and they have no interest in that prisoner. That prisoner's record is unbelievably bad. If you would go into the room, you might, if you would, Caroline, maybe go into the room and see if you can find that little slip. I wrote some things down. I don't know why you'd want to keep them, but I just, we got a little biography of him.
Did you help set up that?
Not a very innocent guy.
Nope.
Yeah,
Did you help set up that
On
meeting,
IRS.
sir?
Mr. President,
on that-
in the spirit of Easter Sunday, and
while we're on the
Friday.
subject, right?
Yes, of course.
So you're talking about Abrego Garcia, is that the one? Yeah.
Yep, that's the one.
Is an illegal alien MS-13 gang member and
Yep.
foreign terrorist. This comes out of the State Department and very legitimate sources. I mean, I assume I'm just giving you what they handed to me, but this was supposed to be certified stuff. In 2019, Garcia was issued a deportation order. 2 separate judges affirmed Garcia was a member of MS-13, which is a gang that may be even worse than Tren de Aragua. It may be worse. They kill people with knives because it's more painful. Very famous for the knifing and killing of 2 young 16-year-old girls walking to school one day, and they sliced them up into little pieces and killed them. That's MS-13. And 2 separate judges affirmed Garcia was a member of MS-13. When Garcia was originally arrested, he was
That's due
wearing a
process.
sweatshirt with rolls of money pouring out.
And to be clear, that is due process. 2 judges affirmed MS-13. Okay, it's already been adjudicated. It's done. So once Trump said they are terrorists and issued the proclamation, those people identified in that category, they've got to go. They don't get to challenge that category again. Just because he was allowed to live here doesn't mean that suddenly something changes and he gets to challenge being a gangbanger again. It's already been done. We've already done the work. We don't have to do it again. So the withholding to El Salvador became invalidated by operation and function of the law once the proclamation was issued. And everybody who was labeled a gangbanger, MS-13 member, had legal cause to be exited out of here. And they were.
An MS-13 gang symbol that he was driving with 2 other known violent MS-13 gang members, 2 of the most violent members that we know of in the MS-13 gang of thugs. In 2022, Garcia was stopped by the Tennessee Highway Patrol, who was found to be transporting 7 people from Texas to Maryland, and he had no driver's license. He was driving violently. In 2020 and 2021, Garcia's wife filed for a protective order from him and said he was violent and abusive and really scary, including allegations that he punched and scratched her on the eye, left her bleeding after throwing her laptop on the floor at her, ripped her shirt, and ripped off her shorts. He then grabbed her arm, leaving very severe marks. Garcia's wife also wrote in court, "At this point, I am afraid to be close to him. I just don't want to be close. I have multiple photos and videos how violent he can be.
Yep.
And all of the bruises that he's left on me." She just couldn't get anywhere near him. This is the man that the Democrats are wanting us to fly back from El Salvador to be a happily ensconced member of the USA family.
Not going to happen.
Isn't it a shame?
It is.
And by the way, I've been hit pretty hard by fake shows, fake news, MSDNC in particular.
Yep.
Where they talk about how evil I am, that this man would be thrown out of our country. This man is according to certified statements that we get, is a very violent person.
According to his own wife.
And they want this man to be brought back into our country where he can be free and to stay as a happily Maryland, they call him the Maryland man. He's a Maryland father.
He's a wife beater.
He's a violent person. Who they don't talk about is that wonderful angel mom who lost her daughter, who had 5 beautiful children, and she was killed violently. And, she spoke, and she spoke unbelievably. I saw it, and the fake news didn't pick it up. She spoke She was in tears. She's devastated. Her life is, essentially, she's told me her life is like over. But
It's
it was
not.
like, I think no stories. Isn't that true? No stories. Zero stories. It was the most emotional thing. Everybody that watched it, they couldn't believe it. The fake news refused to put it up. So it's very sad. And yet they talk about this guy like he's an angel. See the angel up there? They think he's like that.
They do
like
think
a little
that.
angel.
Do you encourage other Democrats to visit?
Would you be open to
It has
letting
no
Iran?
impact. The way she let it, no impact. It's just like unbalanced. Would you do this? Well, go ahead. What I would
Sir,
do.
on
All right, so that's the president, and going through that nice list, explaining exactly who Kilmar is. We know who he is. The media hasn't been paying much attention to that. So they brought his wife out here, and the wife was asked this question, clipped over via Western Lensman on X, says, Abrego's wife gets asked a question and freezes in fear. Hey, Jennifer, why'd you file those orders of protection against your husband?
And I know this is a sensitive question, but I have to ask it. You did take out a temporary order of protection against your husband in 2021. Were you in fear of your husband?
Husband is alive. That's all I can say.
Yeah.
Okay. And I'm not going to push on that, apparently. But
Yeah, what are you going to say? And it's hard to even come down on her because her husband already has done that enough for everybody. So you don't need to double down on the pain that victim of domestic violence is suffering. And maybe she's under some serious pressures here from MS-13, the gang that her husband's in, to avoid talking about that stuff. So you can understand. Yeah, maybe there's some gang members on the other end of that camera going, don't you say anything. You love your husband or else we're taking your head off. She's like, no, at least he's safe right now. Is that good? All right. So not a good position, but maybe Senator Van Hollen can go over there and comfort her. But anyways, this was what C-SPAN had for us. Stephen Miller came out, says, I can't believe this garbage is happening. Shout out to Stephen Miller for continuing to lead the charge on correcting the record here.
There was conversation with Abrego Garcia. What's your response?
I'm almost at a loss for words for how outrageous it is.
Yeah.
Here's an individual, the man who has been deported to his home country of El Salvador, who has been repeatedly documented by multiple federal and state authorities to be a member of MS-13, one of the most violent and ruthless criminal organizations on planet Earth, which is now a designated foreign terrorist organization, and an individual who has been credibly implicated in human smuggling and human trafficking, an individual who is a documented woman beater, somebody who has viciously assaulted a woman in ways that shock the human conscience. That is who the Democrat Party is going to provide aid, solace, and comfort to, not to Senator Van Hollen's own constituents, like the Morin family. Rachel Morin was viciously beaten, brutally raped, and murdered, and her mother never even got a phone call from Senator Van Hollen.
No.
Or Kayla Hamilton, a young girl who was attacked in a public restaurant, raped in the bathroom, and beaten to death and murdered by an illegal alien that Joe Biden set free into the country. None of those people elicit human sympathy from Senator Van Hollen. How broken is that man's heart? How broken is his conscience that he doesn't have even an ounce of empathy or time or concern to share with those families? Or how many of his citizen constituents have been killed by the fentanyl that Joe Biden allowed into this country, by the cartels that made a fortune off of human trafficking and smuggling into this country, or the children in his state that cannot even get a good education or good health care because of the mass migration that has occurred into his state? None of that concerns him in the least. You know, his heart is reserved for an illegal alien who's a member of a foreign terrorist organization. I'm beyond appalled.
Absolutely correct, Stephen. And looking good while you're saying that. Nice suit there. But as is, I think, hopefully becoming more and more clear, this is who the Democrats love. This is who they want to fight for. This is their constituency. What else do they have to offer anybody else in America other than just continuing the grift that has gotten them to the position of power that they enjoy at the moment? They want to continue that on. And so if the illegals helped get them to this position of power, of course, that's who they'll continue to support. Here was Tom Homan on with CNN.
Designated a terrorist. The withholding orders it's set aside. And we got to remember the withholding order was issued years ago. Things have changed. El Salvador is one of the safest countries in the region because of the steps President Bukele take. You know, the gangs are no longer operating on the streets of Venezuela, in El Salvador. That's why he built that prison. So I don't think the gang danger that they once thought was there is even there anymore. So the situation has changed. It's much like temporary protected status, the TPS. That's only temporary. When the conditions in the country have changed, TPS can be ended and they can be removed to the country.
But why not make that argument in court? If you think that you can make the argument that he is fine to go back to El Salvador, why not just make that argument and try to terminate that order that said that the one place he couldn't go to was the one place that he was.
Okay, so to be clear, the order was terminated. The order came from a judge who was an Article 2 judge who worked under the DOJ, said don't send him back to El Salvador. Can't do that. At the time, he was not clarified to be an alien enemy. Once that happened, the adjudication about his status as MS-13 had already happened. It was already done. You don't need to do it again. He got an appeal on it. He had a full trial he could have presented evidence on and lost. The status change means that you can act on that data that you have already created. You don't have to go bake another cake. You've already baked the cake. Just eat that one. Now it's time to eat it. You don't have to go bake another one. So there is no need for another hearing. The finding of gangbanger terrorism is already done. Don't have to do it again, Caitlin.
Was sent to.
Look, again, I'm not litigating this case to the DOJ. I think DOJs continue to litigate the case, but I think we're in a good stance. I think we're in a good place. Again, I'm not an attorney. I can just speak to my experience as a guy who enforces immigration law, but I think that DOJ has a strong case, and I think we're standing by what we did was the correct thing to do.
It was the correct thing to do, and there's no additional process needed. These are immigration cases. They're not Article 3 cases. These are not people who are entitled to all the same protections as citizens because they're not citizens. And this is not new, okay? This has been the situation and the division of power forever. But now they're trying to smuggle in these illegal claims into the Article 3 courts and commingle this in everybody's brains. So thank you for explaining to anybody who you're talking to that Trump didn't violate an Article 3 judge at all. He, in Article 2 land, issued a proclamation that identified properly with due process identified terrorists and marked them for removal. The due process in labeling that person had already been completed. Thank you for sharing that with everybody you've ever met. All right, so we got one final update on this lovely and amazing Good Friday, my friends. We've got a Tish update. I know. But it's Tish time. Let's get to it. Letitia James in more trouble. This one is a letter coming from a New York executive, county executive called Stephen McLaughlin, saying it's time to discipline Tish. While we're waiting for the criminal referral to percolate and hopefully result in some actual charges for her very clear fraud, how about disciplining her and removing her from the New York Attorney General's position because she doesn't have the ethical qualifications to lead? Here was what this letter says. Got sent over via first-class mail. Says, all right, dear members of the Grievance Committee, New York State Grievance Committee, saying, I respectfully refer your attention to the enclosed materials concerning Letitia Ann James, bar number 2251072. As detailed in the criminal referral submitted by the Director of Housing and Finance that is attached, the document outlines multiple instances in where Tish appears to have made false representations in connections with mortgage applications and property records. Now, these allegations raise serious concerns about the integrity and the professional conduct of Ms. James as a member of the New York State Bar. Given her position as the state's chief legal officer, these concerns necessarily implicate the manner in which she handles matters on behalf of the people of New York, including residents and institutions with our county and throughout the state, I believe it's appropriate for you to review these matters under the applicable attorney conduct rules. Thanks for your attention to this matter. County executive submitting a bar complaint about and against Tish James. Now, Tish James is not going to take this one lying down or with her shoes on. She's launching a fundraiser to raise money, and she's charging, I think, more than even Fannie. Fannie might have charged $25K, now that I think about it, for the big Fannie table. She likes Grey Goose, if you forgot, and cruises. But this is, I think, even more than Fannie. Less than Fannie. $18,000 per person. Wow. Okay, so if it's per person, that changes the equation. I think it was $25K per table for Fannie land. So maybe it's $100K for a table. Maybe get a discount. 10. I don't know, 8 to a table. So here's what that referral looks like. Now, embattled New York Attorney General is hitting supporters up for big bucks just days after Trump got that referral sent over. The money bid is in the form of an invitation that went out on Tuesday for an event on Tuesday, calling for contributions starting at $500 and climbing to an eye-popping 18,000 buckaroos, the maximum allowed by New York law. The invite features a photo of James framed by a circular gay pride flag. She's big in the gay community? Is that a thing? Okay. More pieces of the puzzle falling into place. The high dollar fundraiser will be hosted at the home of left-wing activists called Rob Grazier and Rob Smith, the founder of the Fluid Project with a PH, a gender-neutral clothing company. Ugh. Letitia James is fighting for our rights every single day, they said. This is our opportunity to show Tish we have her back, said the website. The AG this week became the subject of a federal criminal referral for her criminal fraud. Here's Letitia. Join us. Support Tish. Tickets, $500. James, who has a home in Brooklyn and Virginia, has been the subject of some scrutiny. They say, right, here's where she signed. I declare that I intend to occupy this property as my principal residence. Got a nice mortgage rate on that. Criminal referral accuses James of misrepresenting the number of apartments that she owns. Says it was 4 buildings. The Department of Buildings says it was 5. 4 buildings, you get a better government-provided loan. You get more lower interest rates, and things are good. So she's got to raise some money now that she's under investigation. Another congressman sent a letter as well saying, thank you for prosecuting her, for crying out loud. This guy says, hey, I'm writing to express my strong support for prosecuting Tish. You need to go after her. This referral marks a critical moment. Her misconduct is shocking given her high position of trust. Now, according to various reports, James is accused of purposely misrepresenting her primary residence in a sworn mortgage application to get a better rate. Evidence presented suggests that James has routinely falsified records of occupancy in multiple states. It's not a clerical error. This is a calculated act designed to secure more favorable terms for mortgages, which is what she prosecuted Trump for getting better deals. If true, these actions would directly violate both federal and state mortgage fraud statutes, and more disturbingly, they would be a deliberate abuse of the very systems that she's elected to protect. Now, as you're well aware, mortgage fraud has a corrosive impact on the entire market. It distorts underwriting practices, causes inflated risks, and more. And so I applaud you for taking this courageous and appropriate step of prosecuting Tish or making the referral. And I respectfully request that you do the following and strengthen these rules so that Tishes can't abuse the system anymore. Signed by Ralph Norman, member of Congress. So Tish is catching it, trying to raise some money to stay afloat. And now she's making these little appearances and posting these videos. She said the Trump's accusations are baseless. I will not be silenced. I will not be bullied. I will not bend. I will not break. I will not bow to anyone. A lot of B words there. She thinks she's Dr. Seuss or something. Here is Letitia.
before this letter went out accusing you of this, that, and the other and making a criminal referral about real estate transactions?
No, not at all. And let me just say to all New Yorkers and to all Americans, the allegations are baseless. The allegations are nothing more than a revenge tour. And as you mentioned, my office was successful in securing a $454 million judgment against Donald Trump
you got
and
wrecked
others
by that Court of Appeals
for exaggerating the value of his assets. He engaged in a pattern and practice
Why does you talk
of fraud.
like that? Assets.
And the interest is accruing each and every day while the case is on appeal.
Which you're going to lose, Tish.
It's important that individuals know that this is nothing more than the continuation of the tour. He went after law firms, universities, immigrants, women. Thousands of federal employees right now are unemployed. Our government is in chaos and in disarray. Medicaid, Social Security, CFPB, and the list goes on and on and on.
How much more of this is
And
there?
as you know, as you mentioned, each and every day, my office is leading the fight against these executive orders, which have...
All right, she's like delusional. She's in big trouble. All right, so here's what Jim Jordan said about it. She's just like she's auditioning for, I think, Jen Psaki's spot. But here is Jim Jordan.
This may be the biggest irony I've ever seen in American politics, that she's now, it looks like she's engaged in the same thing she charged President Trump with. I mean, turns out you can't have your principal residence in Virginia and be the Attorney General of New York.
No.
Turns out you can't on a mortgage form say that your dad is actually your husband. And you also can't say that you got a 4-unit property that's actually 5 units. Those are the 3 things that it looks like she did over a long period of time, and yet she had the gall to go after President Trump. You got to be kidding me. So, yeah, I think this is real. We'll see. Her comments so far, she's been kind of quiet. Of course, she does a typical thing the left always does. The left will you know, they always accuse us of what they're doing. And the other thing they always do, the left will tell a lie. Trump did something wrong. Big media will report it. Big tech will amplify it. And then if you tell the truth, they call you names. And that's exactly what she did. I think she called President Trump and his administration bullies for simply pointing out that it looks like she lied on these forms, and she did it to get better terms and a better rate on the loans. So she was doing it for personal gain, and you're not supposed to do those kind of things.
And she got busted. So she tried to eliminate Trump, take out everything she possibly could, got a $500 million judgment because she was in a kangaroo court in New York on appeal, which she got obliterated by those Court of Appeals judges who were not happy with her case or her bringing this at all. So now all of the allegations she brought against Trump have been discovered in her own portfolio. Amazing how that works. Oh, how the tables have turned. Now, Tish is, I think, in freak out mode, which is why she's saying a lot of the B words: bow, bend, break, whatever. And we know what that means. The clock is ticking and Tish is freaked. We'll be here to continue to cover it. Thanks for subscribing and joining as we do. All right. And so, my friends, if you're just joining us, well, I'm sorry we missed you. We had a great stream, and hopefully you join us next time. But let me do a quick recap for you. See what you missed so you can rewind and check it out. We had some good stuff today. We talked about the emergency appeal from President Trump. This one's going up to stay the contempt proceedings, the contempt unfolding that's happening out of Judge Boasberg. And we read through that, some very good stuff inside. I think Judge Boasberg is acting completely out of turn and trying to essentially recreate his vacated TROs without jurisdiction. And Trump is appealing this. We'll see what the DC Circuit Court says. Then we talked a lot about Kilmar and his lover boy fanboy, Senator Van Hollen, who loves hanging out with Kilmar, Abrego, wife beater, drug trafficker, human trafficker, and gangbanger Garcia, having margaritas there. We talked about that. We then learned a lot more about how the system actually works and about how this judge, the very judge that they keep saying said, Trump can't order, Trump is violating this judicial order that said he can't go to El Salvador. Just remind them The judge was part of the executive branch and the Department of Justice. There were already findings that confirmed his status. And based on the change in policy, they just found the dude that had the status confirmed and they removed him. He's not entitled to another hearing about his status any longer. So that is because withholding is not available for Tren or MS-13 gangbangers. That's how the law works. They don't like it. They can change the law. Oh, the marijuana and the smile is MS-13. Ah, the marijuana and the smile is MS-13. Wow, got it. Good details on that one. The sassy, thank you for that. Marijuana S smile. Marijuana S mile 13 equals MS-13. Very interesting. Very interesting. Okay, so we talked about that. Went through the photos, went through a lot of reaction, talked about how the immigration courts actually work, how they're under the executive branch, talked about how El Salvador has evidence that this dude is a gangbanger and has a criminal record down in El Salvador, and then listened to a lot of reaction, even from the so-called wife, who can't explain why she filed two orders of protections against the so-called amazing father, who's definitely not a gangbanger. Saw that. Then we turned our attention to Tishville and saw how Tish looks like she's pretty dang nervous out here. Look at that, even biting that lower lip. Gross. It says she is now subject of a bar complaint and hopefully a disciplinary proceeding in New York, but we don't know if anything's going to happen there because New York loves Tish as much as Georgia loves Fanny. But my friends, it has been a beautiful and an amazing stream, and happy Good Friday to those of you who are celebrating as we are here. We appreciate you joining us. Thanks for being here and accompanying us through this very busy week. Now it's time to hear from you, and thank you for sending in these donos and these new memberships and for just being all around supportive of our work here. We couldn't do it without you. Thank you for that. Okay, so let's see who's here today. We got this one starting off. What's up, Donut? Thank you, Donut, for clipping for us today. Ah, wow, look at this. Interesting photos. Yes, interesting photos of the MS-13 and the gang signs. Here's what we've got today. We got more membos coming in today. Amazing. So new membos. We'll see you tomorrow on the members only morning stream as well, which happens tomorrow. Oh, look at this. Donut. What a nice post. Thank you, Donut. Sharing this one. Thinking of you on Good Friday and praying that the Lord keeps you in his loving care always. Peace and have a holy and happy Good Friday. What a nice way to start it off. Thank you, Donut, for that one. Amazing. Hey, what's up? Relantel is here. Rel is here. What's up, Relantel? Bringing in 5 new membos. Bringing in Norm. Welcome, Norm. Mark Gangler is here. Orthodox Seeker, Dane Dodson, and Antonio Gonzalez coming in. Thank you to Relantel. Hey, what's up, Doan? Says, when do you think Chris learned of Kilmar's past? Yeah, that's a great question. I don't know, man. Because it all kind of broke during his trip, right? The Van Hollen, the senator, I think he was like in the air as the DV stuff was breaking. He probably landed in El Salvador. And then there's like, I think there's no self-service. So when he's in the prison, he comes out. He's like, oh, that was a great meeting. That was amazing. Totally disconnected. His phone comes. His staff's like, turn around. Turn the plane around. Judge Boasberg is like issuing an injunction. Turn the plane around. He's going to look like an idiot. Yeah. One old guy. Senator Van ASS Holland in the House. One old guy. Steel Manning. Where are we at on Congress removing judges? Basically, I would say 0% out of 100. Zero. Couple things have been introduced, like there's, I think, a representative called Gilbert introduced an articles of impeachment against Boasberg. Some other articles have been introduced, I think, against Judge McConnell and some others. But they're all just sitting there. Nothing's happening on any of them. Congress is weak and ineffective. What's going on? Peace on earth. World peace. Thank you, World Peace, for gifting membos out there. Not even being a membo, but gifting them out. Thank you, World Peace. The world is a lot more peaceful when you're a member of the Watcher fam. Hey, what's up? Richard Paul, welcome. Get Out is here. B. Taus, The Party Fairy, LLC. We got Father of 5, welcome. Randall S., Paul Davis, Sandra Nelson, Bob Vecna, welcome. and Kevin Ritchie, gifted membos courtesy of World Peace. I feel more peaceful already. Hey, Tortuga Chica, 5 membos, Tortuga Chica. Turtles are pretty cool. I mean, you got to just admit it. They're like, what a wild creature. Hey, Dilbert is here. Well, welcome, Dilbert. John Close, what's up? Our new reality coming in. Why So Serious is here. And thank you, BBS. Joining up, courtesy of Tortuga Chica. Thank you, Tortuga Chica. And welcome, new membo friends. Oh, look at this. World Peace, another one. That's so fun and happy. Is that from The Simpsons, I think? Is that Troy McClure? Hey, World Peace, bringing in Rob81. Welcome. Rodney, Real You. We got Josh Sully. Kimber's here. Stella Harris. We got Jay King, Brian Fowler, D Money. We got Tyler Harad and HC, gifted membos, courtesy of World Peace. That's 2 World Peace. Thank you for doing that again. New membos. See you tomorrow, Saturday stream, 12 noon Eastern. Steel Manning is here. Says the insanity to me is judicial oversight is almost impossible and only policed by other judges. No other branch can force one to follow illegal orders. Yeah, I mean, we're getting to a pretty precarious position here where the judge is now ordering Trump to comply with his illegal orders. The Supreme Court vacated his TROs, and now he's granting more TROs or considering hearing more TROs. It's lunacy. What do you like? The judges are such a problem. He's acting like the president. It's a real problem. Hey, what's up, Mock Schnell? Mock Schnell. 20 new membos. Thanks for bringing 20 new friends in. Welcome. Skies on High. Fresh June. Alien Vision 40. We got Paula Ivy. Jai Yashika. What's up, Klyoth? We got Jojo Husky. Darren T. Good God by 1. Andy God by. We got CAG 82. William Dunham. Net Positive. Just a Chippin. We got Gene M. Watching you daily. Welcome. Jur is here. Live Free or Die. Linda Yaworski. BW Gecko and Patty F. Gifted membos. Courtesy of Mock Schnell. Why does he underline with such straight lines? Well, this show is a show of excellence and precision. And extreme heterosexuality, too. That's why. What's up, Mock Schnell? I said Boasberg was doing sedition yesterday. Maybe it is time for the U.S. Marshals to visit his court and take him away. I cuffs, then maybe Roberts will do his job. Yeah, so you would so the U.S. Marshals would take Boasberg away. That would be a spicy day, no doubt about it. What's up, Mock Chanel? Hey, Doan Burrill. Good to see you, Doan. Judges' overreach into executive power is treason by every definition of the word, especially when further motions are made despite SCOTUS's ruling. Yeah, this is the judge now trying to criminalize the Trump administration. Okay. And he has no power to do that. The Supreme Court even said that. You've got no jurisdiction, and he's acting anyways. It's a real, hopefully Congress is watching. Mock Schnell, what's up? 20 more. Mock Schnell, you're amazing. Check this out. Look, 20 new friends. Welcome. Tech the Home, Frex 1002. We got BNM. Boo. Kana X122. Again, we got Nicholas Hilliard, Gonzalo G. Sakins, welcome. Tim Hunt, Ron McNabb, Rhonda Wright, Davy B, Rebecca Everett, I Samaj. We got Stuart McLean, Kimberly Mullins, Charles Mundorf, Charisse Kennerly, Quantum Global Broadcasting Network, and Jeffrey Rucker in the house, courtesy of Mock Schnell. Mock Schnell, thank you for bringing in a bunch of new membos today. We're grateful for you. And we'll see everybody tomorrow. We're going to party. Gorean Lady, what's up? Bringing in one membo. Daniel Wilmoth, welcome aboard. The Tree Father signed up. Thank you, the Tree Father, for signing up. You can, of course, be gifted a membo, but you can also just join up if you'd like to. Thank you, the Tree Godfather, for doing that. Diane, you don't know. Is there anything Americans can do anyway to stop this? Well, our Congress people could certainly act, right? If our Congress decided that we were, okay, time to impeach this judge is ridiculous, they could do that. So you could put pressure on your representatives to do something, or your senators, more specifically. Other than that, I think staying engaged, staying apprised about it's like I remember back during January 6th, after January 6th, like I would talk to people and they would say, well, isn't Trump an insurrectionist? And I would say, what? And they would say, well, wasn't he charged with insurrection? And I would say, what? No. Where'd you get that stupid idea in your brain? And then they would say, well, okay, so like that is important to do. And then I would tell people, no, look it up. Never charged with that. Go look it up. Nobody was. Anyone? No, not a single person. Go look. Then they look it up. They go, oh, you're right. It helps to shatter their brains. So like when you hear this stuff about Trump is overruling a judge, it's not an Article 3 judge. It's an immigration judge, just like an MVD judge. It operates under the exclusive operation of the executive branch. And they made you can explain it as we just did, but it's just fake. So continue to speak about it. Jeff Monhe, the activist judge is attempting to obstruct Trump's agenda. He has no authority to interfere with the lawful removal of an illegal alien. Yeah, or precedent. There's no precedent to even do what they're doing, right? This immigration and removal stuff has all been pretty status quo, pretty standard until Trump comes in and the judges decide, oh, all of a sudden we got a bunch of claims that survive under the APA. It's ridiculous. Mark Schnell, 20 more membos? Man, are the markets up today? What's going on, Mark Schnell? Thank you for this. That's a bunch of membos. Leslie Alava in the house. Welcome. Jay Bird is in the house. Patrick Assalone, welcome. Kimberlyn Robinson, we got Brandon Brooks. One slick dude is here. William Buchner, what's up, Dallas Howard? Donna Oldham, Thistle Moon Farm, Seth Robertson, Mitor Bin ES Dirty. We got Critical Smoker, JL Dubs, GB is here. Shockwave Rider, what's up, Jensen? Joe Shellock, what's up, Russell Judge? Old Lady Farmer, gifted membos courtesy of Mock Schnell. We have a bunch of Mock Schnell friends over here tomorrow. Can't wait to meet everybody. What's going on? We got this one from Ozymandias. Welcome, Ozymandias. Thank you for signing up. We'll see you tomorrow. Grab the stream from this morning. We had a fun one. Ken L. says, judges can't appoint special prosecutors. It's called separation of powers. It's one of the reasons why Congress left the Independent Counsel Act, which was a 3-judge panel, expire in 1999. Yeah, it's not, Judge Boasberg is not Judge Dredd. He can't prosecute and then convict and then sentence everybody. It's ridiculous. One old guy, how do you know they are Democrat district court judges? Well, think of a conservative and take away reason and accountability. Yeah, and a Jack Nicholson comment. Well, I think of a conservative and I take away reason and accountability. How's that? Ken L. Congress let the Independent Counsel Act lapse, LOL. Yeah, definitely did. Yeah, because it was terrible. It was a joke. Hey, what's up? One old guy says, you can't tell a joke here. You know, the critique is like being in Judge Boasberg's courtroom. From one old guy. Well, I don't know who you're talking about. We're having fun with the comments. I think it's pretty funny. Hey, First Shizzle. What's up, First Shizzle? Thanks to you for becoming a membo. And we appreciate that. We'll see you tomorrow. This one came in from Chubby. Says, here's a scene from a TV show on Discovery Channel. It says, here at the Gangbang Lawyers, we want 30 days notice. Trump administration. 30 days, huh? Wow. That's pretty big ask here. I talked to an expert on this one. Best we can do is 48 hours. You better take it because my next offer is going to be lower. Hey, Zone Girl is here. What's up, Zone Girl? Trump needs to control the narrative. He needs weekly fireside chats, and also the government should take out public service announcements to run 30 days on Spanish language TV stations and regular TV stations, giving notice that if you're in the USA illegally, you will be deported upon arrest unless you self-deport as soon as possible or take control of your own life and wait for ICE or Homeland to come knocking. Yeah, everybody's on notice. They've all got notice. As soon as you're captured, you're gone. What's so complicated? Nelson Big says Van Hollen is given the two-handed handshake to properly obscure the tattoos. You think that's what he's doing too? Right there. It's that one too, right there. Yeah, I wonder if what did his photos look like? Yeah, that's an interesting point. Those tats, baby. Interesting. Where was this one here? Yeah, his hands are not as visible on that one. Under the table. Keep them under the table. Yeah, good comment. Nelson Big, thank you for the dono. Doan, Intersectionality is a collection of special interests waiting their turn to deny each other their constitutional rights. Pathetic, to say the least. Yeah, that's that collection of the trading cards. I got three trans and 2 gays. So I got a strong hand here. Oh, how many do you have? Oh, you got 4 white guys. They're going to lose this one. Simon Sliva. Hello, Robert. My take on all of this is MS-13 gangsters and the demarcates is this. This is the food soldiers of the Democrats that do their wet works. Remember Seth Rich? There may be a connection. Yeah, so that was the kind of the darker idea, right? It gets kind of dark if that's where you start to go. It's like there's some pressure on the Democrats to do this, or else. It's to fight for this contingency. Where's that pressure coming from? Why are they so animated? It's either something like that that's a little bit more concrete, or they're just trying to instigate a deeper fissure and fracture between these peoples. Okay, between the people here illegally, like they want them to be very, very mad in a dishonest way, so that something might break or snap or something. In other words, they're trying to, fan the flames. What's up, Darlene? Darlene, thank you for the nice dono. Very generous of you. No comment, but we appreciate you. Thank you for sending that in, Darlene Lane. We got Run Mead. The gangs have deep pockets from all that drug income. Yeah, all that drug income. Jack Hudler shared this one, saying these are Kilmar Margarita. I don't know where this one came from. His hand tattoo came from Trump. Wow. Okay, so the hand tattoo came from Trump. His hand tattoo from Trump. So let me pull that up. Wow, here it is. Amazing. Trump says, this is the hand of the man that the Democrats feel should be brought back to the United States because he's such a fine and innocent person. They said he is not a member of MS-13, even though he's got MS-13 tattooed onto his knuckles, idiots. And 2 highly respected courts, which are in the executive branch, which he probably knows, that's why he said that, found that he was a member of MS-13, beat up his wife, etc. I was elected to take bad people out of the United States, among other things. I must be allowed to do my job. And there is the close-up of the photo. MS-13. So marijuana smile. The cross is like the 1, and the skull is like the 3. MS-13. Kilmar Abrego Garcia, MS-13 tat. Wow. That's incredible. I guess it's all just a figment of our imaginations. What a weird conspiracy. Just amazing. Spudman, thank you for that one, for flagging that. His hand tattoo from Trump. Thank you, Mr. President, for confirming that. Hey, Sheila Poo, they can't drink. They can drink what they want so long as they drink it in El Salvador. Yeah, that's right. That's right. Not our prerogative anymore. If El Salvador wants to release this dude and he can go frolic around with Democratic senators on the beaches or whatever, that's fine with me. Not in our country. I don't think that they should do that because he sounds like a bad dude and beats women, but it's their country. As long as it's not here, it's not outside of our jurisdiction. NY, LAO typically only cite a fraction of illegals because of the paperwork involved. They know, and they know they're going to get fake names, nothing they can do. It's like, what's the point? Why do I even care? That if the feds don't care, what do they care? That's why they are able to live and work within the USA with impunity. Yeah, because there's so many of them. What are you going to do? What are the local cops going to do? If they have a difficult federal government that won't help them, what are they going to do? And when you have 15 to 20 million of them, it's just like, it is what it is. These nuts. It's interesting to see that the Democrats fighting the same talking points they did during the Civil War, human trafficking and slavery. Yeah, and that's also an interesting thing, too, how the Democrats talk about these people. They're like, Jasmine Crockett's like, who's going to cut your grass? Who's going to clean your house? Who's going to do this slave labor for under market values that you're not going to do? It's like, wow. And you're fighting here on behalf of the so-called downtrodden immigrants or something? It's like, that's kind of a condescending way to treat them. One old guy. The IJ court is like going to traffic court. Just you, the cop, and the judge. Yeah, it's not the same. Title 8 of CFR codifies the INA and includes regulations followed by DHS and EOIR. The regulations cover practice and procedure in immigration proceedings. Yeah, giving us some more details on how it works. Thank you for that one. One old guy. Waldo, bringing in Enlightened Carry. Thank you, Waldo, for doing that. Cornelius Buttknuckle is here. Welcome. Isn't Senator Van Hollen going down to El Salvador to essentially negotiate foreign policy over Kilmar a violation of the Logan Act? Yeah, and I think you could make the argument that yes, it is. I think you could say absolutely it is. But you need somebody to prosecute him or do something about that. And that would go back to the executive branch. So then would Trump prosecute a senator for this? I don't know. I think he's kind of prosecuting himself. So I think the answer is yes, you could. I think there's also an argument that no, it's not. But in the historical context of no, it's not, those senators, like some of them went down to Cuba and stuff like that. So like Cuba was an enemy of America. So, you know, if they go down to Cuba and hang out with Cuba, is that palling around with enemy of America? I don't know. And they didn't get prosecuted for that. So like historical precedent, I think would probably say no. And would it be worth a prosecution? Probably not, because he's embarrassing himself. Hey, Rick D says Congressman Comer is bringing it, talking about wanting to know about official travel. All right, so we'll come back on that one. Thank you for that, Rick D. What's up? Thank you for flagging it. James Comer, shout out. Spudman says sample removal notice and warrant posed in court. From Spudman WP, good to see you. Sheila Poo, all this attention on Abrego Garcia is a smokescreen. It actually doesn't matter. He was determined to be here illegally, and he was deported. If an individual's first act is to enter illegally, they're already a criminal. That's right. That's why they don't get the same procedures as a regular citizen, right? It's more administrative, and it's handled by Congress, giving the power to the executive branch to deal with it. Odessia, the Dems are on the take, and it's going to take a rocket scientist to catch them. Well, it's a good thing Elon's in there because he's kind of that. G-Men, which type of court does habeas take place in, Article 3 or immigration? So Article 3, I think, would be where it would be filed. So, and I think that's what they're doing there in the Northern District of Texas, or whatever that Texas was. Pretty sure about that. I might be wrong, but I'm pretty sure. So habeas would be like outside, because you're making a claim about the government wrongfully detaining you. So I think it's going to be Article 3 in the district where they're held. Now, Gary Herman, I hear you, Rob. You need to start referring to the crazy judge's actions as an Admiral Akbar motion. It's a trap. That guy from Star Wars. That's what he's trying to do, Gary. You're absolutely right about that. These are all contempt traps. It's a contempt trap. Like that. Rick D, what's up? From Nick Sorter says a federal appeals court has blocked judge's plan to hold Trump in contempt. Breaking news. Thank you, Rick, for flagging it. We'll have to come back on that one. Spudman, from Boasberg Zoom's call, minute order. For the reasons discussed in today's hearing, the court orders that 1, plaintiff's motion to expedite the temporary restraining order is denied. Okay, so thanks for the updates. NY says, let's call it out. The lawfare Democrats will twist and turn with their legal positions, and by supporting illegals, support modern day slavery. Is anyone surprised? More updates from Rick D. Thank you, Rick, for the updates, for sharing those today. We got one old guy says, Tish Meyer como una, can't finish that one. Pinochet says, fluid, how creative, like Adid Ass or Poo-Boo or Pila. Yeah, great comments from Pinochet. Best helicopter ride ever. Another kid says, Boasberg's minute order is out. I'm so righteously angry at the wickedness and corruption of these judges and the Democrats worshiping evil and promoting Garcia and Carmelo, who got rich off murder. And I think they're buying new houses and new cars now as we speak. NY says, Letitia James should have her bar license revoked. Giuliani had his license revoked, was not even convicted of anything criminal yet. If you look at the standard for Giuliani, James is the AG of New York. She should resign. Doan says, Tish won't be able to gaslight a deposition. Smooth Brain Crypto says, could the DOJ elevate the charges against Tish by addressing the case, as she had to pursue Trump to ruin his run for president because she knew he would prosecute her for these real estate crimes? I don't know that they need to elevate anything in particular, just, handle it appropriately, and it'll process through the ordinary course. But I mean, of course, you want to work on cases you want to work on. And that would be a fun one to work on. Hey, Crypto Crackhead is here. What's up, Jessica Alfonso? We got Gamer Pilot. We got Gary Herman. We got Just Eat Cake. Old Pathworks is here and more. DC courts put a hold on the contempt proceedings. That's amazing news. Thank you, Bodie, for the update. Former says, from the photos you showed, one with the margaritas and one without, just look at them. It's easy to see the hands of the senators are in the exact same position. It looks like a Photoshop. Strikes again. Hey, True KD, I love your content. I learn a lot every time. Thank you, True KD, for saying that. NY says, is the judge coordinating with any Dem operatives? Let's say he is. If it involves national security, would the DOJ need a warrant to tap his phone or his computer from the judge? Yeah, and they would need a big judge to sign off on that. Yeah. One old guy, SCOTUS needs to spank the inferior district court judges. First Amendment says, hey, Good Friday, our Savior entering into his suffering that we deserve. Thank you, Lord Jesus. Easter, his resurrection. Happy Resurrection Sunday to all. Amen on that one. Thank you, First Amendment. This one from Chubby. Given the attitude Boasberg is giving towards the DOJ, it's time for the lawyers at the DOJ to stop following decorum, lay into the judge about his lack of jurisdiction, and just straight up lay out his blatant overreacting and complete disregard for the SCOTUS ruling that vacated his previous rulings and essentially closed the case. He's not following decorum. Neither should they. God bless America is here. God bless indeed. Thank you for bringing in 5 membos. The Wild Goat. We got Theo. We got Caitlin McEwen. We got Rich is here. And Coin Silver gifted membos courtesy of God bless America. What's up, Doan? Make a short of the conflation of Articles 2 and 3. Good recommendation, Doan, and suggestion. Sharpie Guy, the only thing I can think of regarding the rogue judges is to flood the inboxes of senators and representatives with primary challengers unless they stop these abuses. Stop the abuses. Stand up for American values. Anyone who has a better idea, please share that one. Courtesy of Sharpie Guy. Hardened Patriot sharing this link. Just in, DC Circuit Court halts James Boasberg's contempt order against Trump administration officials. Amazing. So that motion we just read was successful. Yeah, that's interesting. Good stuff. What's up, Diane K. Lacey? Good to see you, Diane. Thank you for becoming a member. Great to see you. Mikkel says, hey, here, this is off topic. Did you see Facts Matter report about the nonviolent owners ban that would result if sentence could be over a year, rescission request being returned to the AGs so the request can be granted again? No, I did not see that, Mikkel. I did not see that. From our friend Facts Matter, I did not see it. I'm sure it's great, though. Thanks for asking about it. And shout out to our friend Facts Matter. Spudman, here is a sample warrant that the TDE is getting. Looks like a good one. From the Trende Aragua folks. What's up? One old guy says, Meyer Como Uno looks like. Smooth Brain Crypto says, how about that snow? Are you up in Prescott, Smooth Brain? It's coming down, man. We're getting snowed on right now. It's wild. Wild happening right now in April. Hey, what's up? Melanie, thank you, Melanie, says, just sending some support and appreciation. And Spudman is sharing the link on where you can go read the order. So awesome stuff. Thank you, my friends, for sending those in and for all the support. We're very grateful to have you here, and we appreciate you supporting the work that we're doing here. Of course, we're going to come back. We'll check in on all the latest updates on the Boasberg contempt and all the things. Let me see how short it is, if it's just a short filing, if I have it queued up right here. While we're here, notice of appeal, clerk's order, per curiam. See how short it is. Here it is. All right, so I've got it queued up. Let me just share this since we're here right now, so we don't have to wait till Monday. Very short. Here it is. Upon consideration of the emergency motion, it is ordered on the court's own motion that the district court's contempt-related order be administratively stayed. Wow. So we just read that. Pending further order of the court. The purpose of this stay is to give the court sufficient opportunity to consider the motion and is not construed on the merits of the motion. File a response by Wednesday. Boom. Judge Pillard would not administratively stay in the absence of an order There's no ground. Okay. So very short, tremendous news. Pretty surprising. It's not anything on the merits. It's just administratively staying it. So we'll get a bunch of filings, of course, in next week. But that's great news. Very good news. And my friends, those of you who flagged that for us, thank you for doing that. Thank you for flagging it. NY says, the only reason why the judges are getting out of line is they don't think that they'll get impeached. The ball's in Congress's court. Articles of impeachment for Boasberg would take him out of the lineup. He couldn't hear any cases during it. And one old guy says, the DC Circuit Court is far enough in the muck and will not be pulled further into it with Boneheadsburg over there. Yeah, and thank you for clipping this one, Spudman and Donut for clipping it. Good order today. Yeah, Boasberg is totally out of line, although so is the DC Circuit Court. So a little bit of a surprise there. But all right, my friends, thank you so much for sending those in and for supporting our work and for alerting us to all the breaking news. We want to say what's up to our friends on X. Boom, Elliot sharing it too. The Bose is stayed over on X. So amazing stuff. And that happened fast. Good to see you, Elliot. Couple other links there. Fred sharing the news. Oh, did you guys see this? Yeah, this came out. Wow. So a new video showing us what really happened when the senator went down to meet with Kilmar. Here's what it looked like. The handshake we all saw, but did you see this? Dun 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 dun. What a beautiful move! Beautiful. Boom, 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 boom. Needs a little bit more. Amazing. So those two just dancing. Yeah, having a good time down there. All right. So that's amazing. And that's probably what happened. I'm sure that's a real video. I'm sure if that's real of what happened. Or maybe it's AI, but it might be real. All right. So my friends on X, thank you for sharing those. Tim Young, we saw, he was over there reacting to that. What's up, Dr. Wander, Raven Madness, Tibarama says, were the other people women in the car? Great question. Were they women? Good question. Who knows? And yeah, hey, Mike Cipriano says, Rob, you're more correct than you know. Mexican Americans are not happy when South Americans or Central Americans are also illegally entering our country. Yeah. Yeah, they just think that you're okay with lawlessness or something because you share an ethnicity or something, which is like really offensive and racist ultimately. What's up? Okay, last one came in from Mikel Haim, says, am I mistaken? Aren't inferior courts congressionally appointed offices and they can vote to end them, making them below the three constitutional branches? Yeah, that's a good argument, right? The Congress sets the jurisdictions of the court and can create a district, can eliminate a district, can fund it, can unfund it. They're the ones who create it. So yeah, the inferior courts, there's good argument that they're not, they're clearly not on the same level as the Supreme Court. And so do you even have to follow them until it reaches that, to that level is kind of where we're at. So yeah, the argument is Congress could easily get rid of the DC Circuit. Will they? No, because they're weak and pathetic. Okay, so my friends, thanks once again for sending those in. Great comments. Thanks for all of the donos, for all the new membos. Welcome aboard. Thanks for flagging the breaking news for us. I would have missed it were it not for you. Glad we got that update before we closed it out. Otherwise, we would have had to wait till Monday on that one, but we got it. So thanks for that. And my friends, we're going to leave it there on the day and on the weekend. And I'm really grateful that you're here. Thanks for spending the week with us. Of course, I hope you have one of the most beautiful weekends of all time, if not the most beautiful weekend of all time. We want to thank our mods and our meme smiths for modding the fort down for us and keeping things nice and orderly around here. K-Bean, Donut Mind Me, Carrie B, Playing Hooky, Dog Digger, and Janek modding the fort down for us. Elliot, Docmaster, Geegum Geegum, Meme Smith, Just Rhonda, purveyor of fine emojis. She back in the chat yet? I'm not sure. Oh, yeah. Someone asked about the raid. Okay, so let me see if anybody's online right now. Who's online right now? So I can send them on YouTube. Search to find content from other channels. I don't have anything popping up in my live. Is no one live right now? No one we know is live? What's going on? Timcast is live. Wolves in Finance is live. Let's see. Let's do that. Let's see here. I think I can do that. See if we can do this one. All right. Shout out. He's got to ask. I've got to get permission of him. Ask Wolves in Finance to add you to their live redirect in the community settings. So I can't do it. I need permission to do that? That's stupid. What? All right. Well, okay. We tried to send everybody to Wolves in Finance, but that didn't work out. All right. So now I know. All right. Now I know. Okay. Learning every day. All right. So thank you to our amazing mods and meme smiths. And thank you, my friends, for being here. Thanks for all the support. Thanks for the donos. Thanks for the membos. Thanks for the fun conversation, the friendship, and the frivolity. We'll pause there for the weekend. And I hope you have a beautiful weekend. I hope you're doing something fun, spending time with friends and family, celebrating the resurrection of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Whatever it is you're doing, I hope it's amazing and enjoyable. And happy Easter, my friends, to all of you. Bronca's over on Timcast. Right on. Okay, that's cool. Yeah, so go check that out. My friends, celebrate well. Spend time with your friends. Spend time with your families. Soak it up. Enjoy it. We're going to come back here on Monday. We're going to get into it again. And so until then, I hope you have a wonderful Good Friday, a very happy Easter, an amazing weekend, and that you come back here on Monday to get into it again, because in order to do that appropriately, we are going to need to see you right back here so that together with your help, we can shine that big, beautiful spotlight of accountability and transparency down upon our system with the hope of finding justice. Make it a beautiful weekend, my friends. Happy Easter, and I'll see you right back here on Monday. Bye-bye.